What is happening, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Today is April 30th, and I'm getting an echo. Hold on. I just fixed it. April 30th, Tuesday. We are live for another Tour Life this week. Coming off of championship week, our first major of the year, the second major for the FPO field. First major for the MPO field, and it did not disappoint. It was a pretty fun tournament all around. I think the players had fun. I think the people watching had fun. And obviously our winners had fun as well. We will be joined by Andrew Presnell, the first major champion from the Champions Cup at Northwood Park. He will be joining the show in about half hour or so. Eveliina Salonen, she is on her way back. Or traveling, I guess, today. So she will be joining the show next week. So I'm excited to have her on after her two big wins. Obviously, this one being the biggest this past weekend. We're going to do a full Champions Cup recap, top to bottom. People that missed the cut, people that are finishing the top 10. We're going to go through it all. Also, Hot Take Hannum is back on Twitter. We'll talk about that. We've got some Edwin stats, as always, with the wild story of the week, and then we'll finish it off with some listener questions. Yuli will not be able to join us this week, but we do have a fill-in, a good fill-in, that is. Brian Earhart will be coming back on Tour Life. He'll be making his second appearance, this time as a co-host and not a guest. So he will be joining me shortly. Before we get into today's episode, today is sponsored by Manscaped. Call them what you want. Knee knockers, golden nuggets, thigh slappers, etc. But our friends at Manscaped refer to them as the boys. Not every man has children, but every man is responsible for their two boys below the waist. When your little guys have more hair than they need, trust Manscaped for all your grooming dreams. Boys need love too, so join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com and use our code TOURLIFE for 20% off plus free shipping. You heard it here first. The boys are back in town. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the waist. That's why I trust Manscaped for all my sensitive areas. Introducing the Lawnmower family, including the Lawnmower 3.0 Plus, the 4.0 Pro, and the 5.0 Ultra. Yep, all three ball trimmers. Isn't it awesome? Boys need love too, and for this reason, each trimmer is equipped with skin-safe technology, an LED spotlight, and unique features for different grooming needs. The skin-safe disclaimer is required anytime it is mentioned. The disclaimer will need to appear on the screen. This was not ready for me to read. Okay. We're going to skip that part. These trimmers come with a travel case and even a travel lock feature to avoid any accidental powering or weird looks in the airport. This right here is on the cutting edge of cutting pubes. Upgrade your ball trimmer and your life will follow. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code TOURLIFE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code TOURLIFE at manscaped.com. For the best your boys have ever looked, trust Manscaped. All right, I guess I'm gonna have to proofread this a little bit. Silas, you set me up there. That felt like a little Ron Burgundy.
Hey, that's my bad.
An Anchorman situation where you put it on the screen and I'm gonna read it.
Hey, that's my bad. I'll take the blame for that one.
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, we back in town, back in Dallas. So the crazy thing that's going on in our life right now, if you don't follow us on our sports card show, we had a couple live shows already this week where we kind of talked about this a little bit, but to catch all you guys up on the craziness that's going on in our life over here, Kelsey was wanting to go back to the Raiders, cheer for them again a second year. So we were going to move back to Las Vegas if she made the team. All signs point that she was probably going to make the team again, right? Well, some weird stuff was going on where someone that kind of influenced her to go back to cheering and to play and to cheer for the Raiders, that person was kind of not going to be in that spot anymore. So she was like, well, if that person's not going to be there, then I don't want to be there. And I guess I'm just done dancing. So we kind of almost transitioned to being like, all right, we're going to be locked in at Dallas going forward here. As of yesterday, this happened like all day yesterday. Crazy stuff was happening. It turns out that that person might actually, in fact, be back. So Kelsey hopped on a flight. I dropped her off at the airport this morning at 5:30. That's 3 days in a row that I've woken up before 5 o'clock. Your boy's tired. I'm going to need to get my beauty rest, which I'll get hopefully tomorrow a little bit, even though I am driving to Emporia tomorrow. So I don't know what time I'm going to leave for that. But yeah, Kelsey hopped on a flight. She's back in Vegas trying out tonight. So everyone send good vibes to Kelsey. She's doing her first part of the tryout tonight. And yeah, if she makes the team again, then we will be moving back out to Vegas during the season. And I will be going to, I think we'll have 8 home games this year, not 9. So some crazy stuff going on with me over here. But I am getting prepared to leave tomorrow to go up to Emporia for DDO, which is now at Champions Landing. I don't even know if we're really even going to talk about that much. We have so much to talk about. And Brian should be joining me shortly, which will be great. But I'm going to kind of break down what happened with my week, because my week was a little crazy. If you followed me on Twitter, you saw that I pretty much tweeted out like bummed out that I wasn't able to capitalize coming down the stretch on Saturday to make the cut. I thought the cut was going to be 2 over was the cut line after the first round. 4 over was the cut line after the second round. So I was just assuming 6 over was going to be the cut line after the third round. Well, turned out that wasn't the case. And I think we do have Brian with us. Silas, do we have Brian? Because we'll pop him in right now. Yeah, sorry, Brian, for the time situation. Apologies, but I know everyone's excited to have you on. So we'll get you locked and loaded. I think you're on live now. All right. We are joined now with Brian. Brian, co-hosting duties. Excited for this. I was just kind of talking about my week down there. And I was saying how as I was finishing up my round 3, I was under the impression that I needed to get to 6 over to make the cut. That's what I was thinking. And actually at the time, it looked like 5 over. When I was on hole 18, it looked like 5 over might have been the cut line. And I was playing with Ty Love, who was out of position after 3 shots, out of position after 2 shots. And he tries to throw this crazy roller to get up to the basket. He ends up going OB, taking a bogey. He was at 6 over par, or he was at, what was he at? No, he was at 7 over par. He thought he needed a birdie. Was at 7 over par, so he dropped to 8. I ended up not birding hole 18, hole 16. I missed the birdie putt, and I think I missed another birdie putt coming in. I think I might miss one on 17 too. So I thought I was out of it too, and it just turned out that like down the stretch, I don't know, people were going OB on 17 and bogeying that hole. And the cut line moved from 5 to 6 over, and then it moved from 6 over to 7 over. And all of a sudden I'm like, all right, I guess I'm playing tomorrow. But it was the dreaded cut line. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Do you think everyone that makes the cut should cash?
It seems to be, that seems like it should be the case on the outside, right? I guess I've never had, even as a player, I've never had too strong of an opinion on that. Yeah. But on the outside, it should be that, right?
I think they should have, I don't think it should influence the cash at the top, right? I don't think they should be taking money from first, second, third and redistributing it to those players. But it is kind of a crazy thing to think that, you know, multiple people had to go back out there and play another round. And if you really think about it that way, like, I think a lot of people would be like, hey, listen, I don't want to spend another night here, spend money on a hotel. I'd rather get to the next course, start whatever it may be. So I think it should be that way. I'm not just saying that because I did end up cashing. But I do think if you are going to have a cut line, it needs to just be like everyone that ends up making the cut should cash. So last place or whatever, like that should get all split with those people, if that makes sense.
What is it like in golf on the PGA Tour? Is that how it is?
Yeah, they all make money. Yeah, they all make money. Yeah.
And again, that was because of ties, right? That this happened?
Correct. So they were going to pay out, I believe, the top 38 players. but there were like 7 people tied in 38.
Yes.
So if we would have all stayed the same and we all would have tied for 38th, then we would have all split 38th money.
Yeah.
But I ended up dropping to, 44th or something, and then someone was 43rd because we all separated, right? So yeah, last cast was 885. So I think they should have split that 885 with everyone at the bottom. So everyone would have gone home with like $100 or something.
Might
right?
as well, right?
Or something along those lines.
It seems to make sense that if golf is doing that, I wonder what the reasoning for making the decision is. I haven't looked too far into that policy. I don't know that too well, but again, outside perspective, of course, you make the cut. Congratulations, there's your money. Even if there's a huge tie, of course you get split. But on PGA Tour, even if there's a tie, do all those guys make the cut?
Yes, they still do.
But then they split like what, 75 grand?
See, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think it changes right now, right? Because like me not making any money versus making $100, I don't really care. But what if last cash is now $10,000?
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
We kind of need to make this policy before it gets to the point of where someone's like, wait a second, like, I don't get a piece of anything. So yeah, I think as the money goes up, it's going to be a little bit more crazy. Because right now, like $50 to $100 to a lot of people, it doesn't really matter. But when you're talking the thousands, then that's still obviously everyone wants to make a little cash. Other things for my week playing wise, I mean, I don't think that this was, if I had to think in my head, like, hey, I'm going to take a couple weeks off and then come back on tour, I don't think this is the tournament I'm circling as like, oh, this is like a great intro back to playing on tour. Me and Eagle, like we saw what happened too with Eagle coming back. We'll get to that later. It's not for the faint heart, but I will say this, like my game does starting to feel a little bit better. Shocker. I'm actually practicing. That's what practice does. But I think if this course didn't play to where you actually had to use strategy, you actually had to use course management, you actually had to think about what you were doing and not just throwing, I don't think I would have made the cut. I don't think I was throwing the disc well. I don't think I was putting extremely well. I just wasn't really compounding on mistakes, and I wasn't really playing stupid. And I think that's why we see someone, which we'll get to here in a second, like an Andrew Presnell winning this tournament. Right? Because this course is one of the few courses we play on tour. I don't really know that many off the top of my head. USDGC's a little bit on some holes, but like this is one of the courses where you're not just throwing a shot and doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, who can execute the best? Like you actually have to try to figure out the puzzle. And a lot of people struggle with that.
I agree. I think there's a lot of betting against the field, too. I think people over time have looked at scoring averages on certain holes to try to craft their game plan. They know they don't have to go 13 under par. I think when Casey White shot that 7 under par, he was like the 8th player ever to have done that. And then Ezra became, I think, crazy. When it comes to 8 under par, he joins an even more elite club. And the 3 holes that they used, the 3 different holes, or maybe 4, are playing arguably harder than the ones that they played previously. So
yes, the course
crazy
is harder.
Club. Yeah. So they know, okay, if I shoot hot, it's going to be 7 under par. I don't need to go super low. So how do I manage the bogey stroke? So I love this place. Player, spectator, commentator. It's awesome.
Yeah. I showed up on Wednesday. So I got one practice round in, and my first round on Thursday, as we were walking to hole 3, because we ended up skipping. That's where we kind of skipped. We went from hole 2 to hole 2 to new hole 3, which is the par 5. Like it popped in my head. I was thinking they just took out 2 holes. I was thinking they took out that one little par 4 and then that other par 4. But they ended up taking out 3 par 4s, and all 3 of those were really scoreable holes. Yeah. And so they really removed holes that were extremely scoreable. They made, I believe they made 18 a better hole. I didn't like the old 18 that much. Better for MPO. I think worse for FPO was terrible hole for them to finish on. But yeah, some of the new holes, also like having some of these holes earlier in the round made it a little bit more challenging. I thought hole 10, that new par 4, was very, very challenging. And I know some people are like, that's too hard of a hole. To me, I love that. I love the idea of like you have to throw such a good tee shot to even give yourself a birdie look, because to me, like the scoring separation doesn't always have to be 3 and 4, 3 and 4. The scoring separation can sometimes be 4, 5, and 6, and that's what that hole was.
It totally was, and also I followed behind obviously the whole weekend, and when you throw a good tee shot, the shape changes significantly. 5 feet left, 5 feet right.
Yes.
AB was on the short tee pad on the par 3, which is actually a cool hole that we don't get to play. And Paul was pushed 30 feet deep left, and he had to throw this crazy push hyzer flip, and AB got to throw a putter. I think it's a wide open lane, and I think you have to play chicken with the tree line in the backside to give yourself a straight shot. Otherwise, you're having to throw some chop Anheuser forehand to pan down the tunnel. I don't know. I've played many variations of that hole, and I really like the way it was now. I also have a question for you. What was it, hole 7? That's like the tunnel par 4. It was a really old
they
gold
moved
layout.
it back. They moved it back.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that hole too a lot.
Yeah, but is that are we talking about the same one where they like a lot of players were laying up like 150?
By the cemetery.
Yeah, yep. Do you like that as a par 4, or do you wish they moved it up 70 feet, 60 feet for a 400-foot par 4 or par 3?
So this is what I think. Well, I would have kept it as a par 4, actually, Brian. This is what I think. I love this course actually more for Champions Cup as a major than WR Jackson. I think WR Jackson, I think we already have really scoreable courses in our, like, Worlds is normally always really scoreable. European Open we know is really scoreable. USDGC, let's be honest, unless it's super windy, people can go and shoot 12, 13, 14 under out there, right? So we already have 3 majors that are extremely scoreable majors. Why not have one major where it's like, hey, if you shoot 4 under every single round, you win the tournament. So I like that for this. And the only thing I think that should change is let's make a little tweaks here and there with the tees from day to day, and also pin location. So like one of mine would be the hole that you were just saying. Why not on Saturday keep it all the same, but let's move it up to where now instead of 550 feet away from the basket, let's make it 450. So people can be like, okay, do I want to try to throw 2 tight 275-foot shots and try to get a birdie, or do I want to push myself and maybe get an eagle look? But now putting myself and getting that eagle, now I might not even get a birdie if I shank it and I'm in the woods. Hole 1 is another one too. Like, let's see us go down, like tee down, not super high, tee down. Let's move the basket 30 feet to the right. And now that turns into a forehand hole, right? And so like I think small tweaks like that throughout the tournament could be very fascinating as well, not just for players, but also for the spectators watching.
Do you like at USDGC, you like when hole 17 goes, the ABBA placements? You like that?
Yes. I think the more we can make it to where players aren't stepping up and being like, oh, I've thrown the shot 100 times. I think that's better off for everyone, right? I think having a little bit of doubt in your head, and also when it is that tucked pin on 17 at USDGC, we have seen people crumble on that hole because they're trying to birdie it, and you can't just bail out and give yourself a putt. I like it. I'm a fan of changing baskets, changing pin locations, because it adds in another layer for players of like, how should I play this hole?
Do you like them to have at least one chance at redemption? Like I like a 2 pin position hole.
Yes.
I don't know if I want them to see it once.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No. I think where disc golf is right now, I think it's almost like just even doing it like what Ledgestone does too. I think they were messing around with it a little bit. There was a couple tournaments that mess around with a little bit where it's just like one day we're going to play it at this position and then we're going to go back. I like that. Before we go more of the layouts, though, I did want to bring JVD on. He does have Smashbox coming on here in a little bit, so we want to pop him on real quick because me and him, we went back and forth a little bit. So maybe Brian, you can jump in here too on your thoughts. We haven't talked about ratings too much, but JVD, thank you for jumping in. I did see it. So for those to catch everyone up, Great Takes Disc Golf said 1041 rated disc golf wins Champions Cup. Does this mean the field played poorly? Can someone explain if this means something? It's usually much higher. which JVD said ratings have flaws, but they are the current best way to compare individual rounds between vastly different courses, unless you have a better way. I responded with saying, yes, how about we just use the thing that matters the most, scores. And then you said scores don't equate between different courses. They aren't a level comparison. So we're going a little bit with the ratings. We haven't done that in a while in here, so I appreciate you jumping on here to talk about ratings with us a little bit. So I guess I'll let you start first on why you think ratings is a good, is the best, like you said, the best measurement that we currently have.
That their rating system is any better than UDisc's rating system. I would love to see some tweaks. I do think that the way UDisc does it right now, where I think the more birdies you get, the harder and the higher the points go. So, but their scale is different. I think their scale hits up maybe a max of 400 if you're lucky, high 300s or something for those last couple birdies. But the way the PDGA does it, and I don't think a lot of people know this, is the SSA information, the scratch scoring average. Every course has a specific SSA. And funny, I oh my God, I actually called upon Chuck Kennedy, the creator of the ratings. And to know Chuck is to know that if you call upon Chuck, you're in for a conversation. So I had a very long back and forth with him on Facebook. But Northwood is actually a really interesting course because its SSA is like out of the traditional buckets that we currently have. It's such a hard course that I think the SSA was like 76 or something, whatever 1,000 rated. And I believe the current ratings only go to like 68 or 72, maybe is what it is. He mentioned it. So I think that we have a slight flaw in the ratings for this type of difficult course. And Chuck went on to explain about how, the ratings were created during a slightly different period when we didn't have the OB that we have now. I mean, we've all seen how courses like the Memorial will break, will absolutely break ratings. I mean, what's better?
The best ratings course.
Yeah, I mean, it is because you have such a variety of players shooting such a variety of scores. I've gone out to Fountain Hills and I'm right now a 930 rated player, 920. I don't want to give myself too much credit yet. Hoping to bump that up this weekend. But I went out there as a 950 rated player. I think I shot a 9 down on Fountain. Great round, phenomenal round. I think it was maybe one of my few over 1,000 rated rounds. Go out the next day and I think I shot like an even. Just that course can break people. And you've got people, I'm sure Brian can go out there. He's 1,000 plus rated and he wouldn't feel bad if he went out and shot a 4 down. And he wouldn't feel much better if he shot a 13 down. It's that type of course. And I think Northwood is very similar to that, especially with the OB that's out there now. It's tough to score at Northwood. But as far as ratings go, I think that we need to take a look at how our ratings are really good at comparing two dissimilar rounds on similar SSA courses. Comparing Northwood to, we'll say, Paul's 45 at Maple
why
Hill.
do we need to do that?
I don't know.
I don't either.
It's difficult because, like you said, score. How do you do score? Golf has par 72, par 71. That's basically it on the tour.
But my whole point is exactly this is why I think ratings are dumb for the Pro Tour. You got to remember, I don't think ratings are dumb in general. I think they are flawed, but in general, I think it is the only thing for someone that lives in Indiana and has a buddy that lives in Oklahoma and they play tournaments locally and they want to be like, I'm 945, I'm 900. When they show up, one of them's like, all right, I want to give you a couple strokes, right? I think it's like the best handicap system that we have. I've always said they're dumb for the Pro Tour. We should never use them. The PDGA blasts them out all the time. The Disc Golf Pro Tour has tons of graphics that every single time they blast out on coverage and on social media. And you have people like this literally going, Andrew Presnell, like, what happened? Did everyone just play bad? That's the problem with ratings is people look at them and they think like, oh, I guess everyone just played bad and Presnell just like won at 1040. My thing is like, I don't think we need to compare Andrew Presnell's tournament at Champions Cup to last year Isaac Robinson winning Champions Cup at at WR Jackson. I don't think I need to look at those things. I can literally see and be like, Andrew Presnell won by multiple strokes. He birdied holes coming down the stretch to make it to where it wasn't even close. That was insane. I can look at Eisen Robinson and said, he literally coast to coast just dominated the entire field. That was super impressive. I don't need to compare those two. And then the other thing that ratings, and if people are wondering like, Brodie, why do you think ratings are flawed? This is the easiest argument.
Oh, they are flawed.
If I go out, well, just to explain to people, if I go out to a course and let's say every single hole is 400 feet and I'm 1,010 or whatever I am now, and I play with a 900 rated person and every single hole is 400 feet wide open in a field. My score versus their score is going to be pretty close. It's not going to be super separated. And that course to me is going to be pretty easy. And that course to that player is going to be pretty easy based off their skill level. Now let's go to the same exact course. Every hole is still 400 feet. The only difference is we're throwing on an island and we're throwing over water that's 360 feet long. So now there's a gap of 40 feet between the water and the basket. That course plays exactly the same to me. The skill level does not change. It is just as easy. But for that 900 rated player, that now becomes one of the hardest courses they play.
Yeah, but I think you're giving too much credit to the 900 rated player on a 400 foot shot. A 900 rated player on a 400 foot shot, you could literally go 18 down. They're maybe not getting a birdie on that 400 foot wide open shot because
that's fine, but they're also not taking any bogeys. And when they
will. Yes, they will.
Go to your local putting league.
Okay, but I'm saying how many bogeys are they taking? A handful?
Handful at most, yeah.
They could go six.
You hope so.
They could go 6, 7, 8 up. Easily.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But now they have to carry water the whole way. Now what are they taking? What are they doing?
Of course.
They're doubling that, tripling that, right? They're making it look like the same course level as that's my whole point. The course doesn't change for my skill level, but it drastically changes for them. And the reason why we're not seeing Paul Macbeth isn't getting worse. Calvin Heimberg isn't getting worse. These guys that were Ricky's not getting worse. The guys that were 1050 rated and are no longer 1050 rated, the reason why that's happening is because the bottom of the field is better. So we don't have people out there blowing up and making these courses look a lot harder than they actually are. That is why this course right here. What was the lowest, the highest, or the lowest rated player?
I think a 950. I think there was a handful of 950, a 960, maybe a 980 rated guy out there.
Yeah, and then the rest are all 1,000. Like if this had a field like Memorial, where you're going to have a bunch of high 800, low 900 players, I think it would score a lot differently. So that's my whole take on the ratings.
Well, I think what you're selling then is that the ratings are going to get more accurate as we clear out the chum.
If we only had tour ratings, that would be something else. Now, if I'm a Scott Withers or a Corey Ellis or Andrew Presnell, and I play a bunch off tour, or I'm the guy from Japan, the highest rated player in the world that comes over here, and then all of a sudden is 100, finishing 100th place, that's where ratings don't work, is people bounce around. If we only did ratings and everyone was like, this is my on tour rating,
sure.
Then that would actually be a stat that maybe we could look at. I still think it'd be kind of silly. I think it'd still be silly, but it would be way more accurate than people going home and inflating their ratings crazy high and then jumping on tour.
See, and I don't think we're seeing a lot of that on tour anymore. That used to be the case, but we're seeing that a lot of pro tour players, tour card holders these days they're not grinding like an Andrew Presnell. You're not catching your Calvin Heimberg.
No, you're right.
Playing B tiers, playing, he'll play the occasional A tier. I'm sure he's going to go to play Vegas. It's a huge sponsored Innova event. He'll get that A tier in, but and you're going to see those ratings be off from what we've probably seen Vegas in the past.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing a lot of that anymore. And I think in the long run, and obviously, as we said, every course has a different rating. So what I would like to see, and I think Chuck Kennedy actually has an article out on the PDGA site from a couple of years ago that compared the best rounds with their SSA versus other things. And Chuck's a really smart guy, way smarter than probably any of us when it comes to statistics. But it's interesting. I don't see a problem with them, though. I think what you would see is a lot of people get upset if for some reason the PDGA started hiding those rounds, didn't show you what your round rating was. And we only saw Brodie shot an even at Northwood and, Presnell shot a 7 under for a round. I think you would get a small revolt from the average player that they want to see these ratings. And the problem is, if the ratings are out there, they're going to be used. We all know that. People are going to look at it, because I do think it's easier to look at. It might bring up questions when you say, well, how come Prez only shot a 1040 average versus, Isaac's 1060 last year, or whatever it happened to be. But
I think that lies the problem, though, is you have people like this guy tweeting saying, like, did everyone play bad?
But as you said,
which is just
if you want to research that,
thought.
you look into his 1060 and you go, oh, I'm going to dig into that. Oh, he led wire. Well, he didn't lead wire to wire, but he led Did he lead wire to wire at Champions Cup? I can't remember.
Presnell?
No. I'm sorry. Last year at Isaac.
He might have. Yeah. I don't know. I don't. The thing is, though, is like that's where I think there should be debate of people saying who played better, Isaac Robinson last year or Andrew Presnell this year. And there's going to be some people being like, oh, well, he just had a higher rating, so he played better.
You're right. There's going to be uninformed people. There, hands down, there will always be. And the only way we can tell people, hey, do your research. I think the ratings are an easier way to look at a particular round and kind of look at it and rank it, so to speak. I don't think it's necessarily 100% accurate. And I believe that in the long run, with as many rounds rated that we have, most things come out in the wash. Because as we know, DDO, and forgive me, I don't know what the new layout is going to be. I know they've changed, EMAC has changed a few holes. But, what's a good round out at DDO these days? 8, 9 under par?
It depends on the wind. Like you have no wind, and it's you can
one
shoot
under
so
was
low.
really good that one year for me.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You shot really well on an extremely windy day. I think.
Yeah, but I don't think we need to have ratings to tell us that. I think we literally can just look at the field and be.
I mean,
no, you just literally look at the field. Literally look at the field and say only 3 people shot under par.
That's one way, but a lot of people might not do that same research.
I don't need another number, though.
You're just going to look at a general number. Most people are just going to look, like you said, score. Most people are going to look at a score and be like, he shot 1 down. When people are looking at the grand thing, I think the more information we have out there, the better.
But if only 3 people shot under par and all the other rounds people are shooting 10 under par, I think it's clear to say, like, oh, it must have been really tough. If you don't want to look and figure out what's going on, it's just like, oh, it must have been really tough conditions. So
yeah, I mean, you could say that. I mean, there's going to be research in no matter which way you do it. I mean, if you want the full picture, it's going to happen. But
I just hate that we spent that much money on ratings. But I'm sure we'll have you probably back on again to talk about more ratings. We have Presnell.
I don't care much about ratings. I will say, hole 7 right now, perfect hole at Northwood. Don't change it. Hole 14, get rid of it. Horrible hole.
Oh, wow.
It's awful.
Okay.
It's awful.
All right. Hot take.
The worst.
There you go.
It's the worst hole maybe on tour.
Okay.
Hole 14.
Nice.
There you have it. All right. Well, we appreciate you jumping on. Smashbox goes live at the top of the hour. If you guys want to pop over there and listen to there, we appreciate you, and have a good show tonight.
All right. And I think we're going to have Prez first, and then you guys are getting him, right? He's going to flip from one to the other? I don't know.
Whatever wins happens.
The dude's a grinder. He's too busy playing league rounds right now in order to get on.
Attaboy.
Let him celebrate. All right, have a good night, guys.
Yep, take it easy.
Yeah.
All right. We actually that was an interesting take. Well, maybe we'll jump into that in a second. We actually have Prez right now, so we are going to bring him on. Major champion Andrew Presnell joins Tour Life for the first time. Were you just playing some like Halo? What's going on? Are you doing Rocket League over there?
I was playing some Rocket League, of course.
A little celebration Rocket League play?
Heck yeah.
All right, Andrew Presnell, has it set in? You said after you won that it still hasn't really set in yet. Has it finally set in that you were a major champion winner?
I lost audio, but I heard the very end of that question. Can you hear me still?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. It's kind of setting in waves. Like I'll go an hour and don't really feel anything, but then like I'll have a kind of like a random moment where I catch myself smiling and just kind of thinking back about the whole tournament. And it's coming in waves.
Nice. Okay, can you explain, just before we jump in here, can you explain this press for press thing? Where did this start? When did this happen?
Yeah. So it was actually Paul Macbeth's idea since he's my bag sponsor, he had a secondary idea to do just a little funny Prez for Prez campaign T-shirt and discs, since it's an election year. But it's something just to have some fun. It's nothing serious or anything like that. But it was really good timing because it was all planned before Champions Cup, and I just happened to win Champions Cup. And now that we have the merch for sale, it's just really good timing.
I was thinking, I was like, did Discraft really whip this out that fast? I was gonna be super impressed, but yeah, I guess timing is everything, and you made the most of it. That is for sure. We have our I want to pull this up real quick before we dive into what happened this week, because we have our stats guy, Edwin Stats. He always, when we have players come on, he always creates these like Madden rankings, and it's always interesting to hear what people think of theirs. So this is what he has for you as your Madden rankings. I want you to kind of let me know, is some of this off, is some of this not? So low end is 70, best, so worst on tour is 70, best on tour is 100. So obviously it doesn't go farther down than that. He has you at scoring at 82, power at 83, accuracy at 94, scramble at 85, putting at 78 for an overall of 85, which is actually the MPO average, right in between 70 and 100. What are your thoughts? Are any of those flawed, you think? Anything that needs to go up? Maybe some things go down? What are your thoughts?
Let's see. The power probably could be moved down. I know
really?
I don't.
Okay.
I know I don't have the most power on tour. I'm probably like, the bottom third of power on tour.
Okay.
But that's fine. I'll take the 94 accuracy. I think that's the trade-off.
Yep.
And let's see, scramble, that's fine. Since I've gotten a workable forehand this year, I feel like that scramble rating is accurate. And then let's see, putting 78. Man, when I'm on a good day, it's like 95, and when I'm on a bad day, it's probably 70. So
well, let's
that's fair. 78's fair.
Well, let's jump into the putting. This might have been, I think, all of us watching live, and Brian, please jump in too, because you were there,
brother.
When we saw this happen on hole 5, you're 20 feet away, and you've got the lead. You're ready to extend it even more, and the putt goes a foot or two over the basket, straight into the water. Hunter texted me saying it looked like you your dog just got shot in front of you, is like the reaction that you gave.
I did one of those.
Like, just walk me through what happens there, because I think all of us watching were like, well, this is it. Like, this is where he crumbles, and this is it.
Yeah, I've told this story a couple of times already, but so I had a 3-stroke lead going into that hole, and I'm first on the tee box. I laced the drive right down the middle. I know I have a putt somewhere by that back wooden wall, and Joey and Ezra and Nicholas, they had all missed their birdie putts, or they laid up for par or whatever. So I am all pumped to go down there for this 22-footer to take a 4-stroke lead. I'm already thinking about how I'm making this putt, setting the tone, showing them that I'm here to win. And I'm lining it up, and I feel a little bit of a gust coming through the woods, but I just told myself, like, you got this. It's a short putt. And I think it was a combination of a bad release and then like a slight wind gust that just kind of sailed it right over the basket. And it was a shocker. That it didn't even cross my mind that I would airball that putt into the water.
Brian, what were your thoughts watching that live?
It's so funny. I felt the same gust that he felt. It was just horrible timing. Like, instantly, whoosh, right out of his hand. I turned around, and Ezra Robinson's standing on the path on the way to the next hole, and we both just went, we both just went, yikes! And Ezra looked genuinely concerned for you. I actually have to applaud him for his empathy, because it looked sincere. It wasn't like a, yes, I got this guy. It was like, dang, if that happened to me, I'd be so devastated.
This
Handled it well.
Yeah, this goes back to me saying we got to get flags on all these baskets, because that is what the wind is such a hard thing for the viewer to watch. In person, you can feel it. Like Brian, you just said you felt it, but me watching that live, like I knew I was out there playing, so I knew that the wind was ripping. But if I'm watching that, I just think like, holy cow, like he just sailed it.
That was awful.
But if that flag is all of a sudden just ripping, it's like, oh my gosh, like that was terrible timing. So we got to get flags on the basket. That also might have prevented your disc to going OB too, which would have been nice.
Maybe.
So when did it set in? Holy crap, that was my only putter.
Probably when I'm like this. And I knew that I'd lost my only putter, and I knew that I had a backup one in the car, which is probably 1.5 miles away. We were probably on the furthest hole from where my car was parked.
Really far, yeah. So why are you not carrying that backup?
I switched putter molds at chess.com. I was putting with the Focus and I was throwing the Focus. And first round of chess.com, I putted so bad I folded my putting putter into fourths, and it was trashed. Then I realized, I was like, crap, I did not bring a backup Focus because I flew down to chess.com. And so I was staying with Clemens at our Airbnb, and he's on Discraft now, obviously. And he's just like, well, let's see what I got in the van. And he whips out like a Challenger SS, and a Roach. And so I'm at the Airbnb at the practice basket, just putting. Challenger SS winning the most, and I said, I guess I'm rolling with this. Because the other Focuses I bagged, like one of them is ultra flippy, and the other one's just kind of beat up to a straight throwing putter. It's got all kinds of nicks and stuff. So I didn't really want to putt with either of those. But then I putted really good at chess.com, and I just said I'm going to roll with the one putter and just keep the Focuses as throwing putters.
Has Discraft sent you a box of Challenger SSs for you?
I picked some up at Ledgestone. I picked up some identical black ones that have a really cool black bar stamp. So I was putting the Missy Gannon ones, but now I got some really good bar stamp ones. And the backup putter that my brother ran and got, I had no idea that it was 167 grams. Ooh. No clue. And yeah, like when he handed it to me, I'm like, okay, this feels the same. And I turned it over. I was like, 167 grams. I was like, oh boy. And it's like 30-mile-an-hour winds on some of the greens. So I just said, well, we're gonna have to make it work.
So I've seen you blast out on Twitter, like when people start talking about like fastest person on tour. You have a background in soccer. Does your brother also have some sort of background? Because I think the majority of caddies out there are not surviving a 1.5 mile out and back run.
So he actually got lucky, and somebody on the golf cart doing the shuttles, they picked him up, I think, right at the front, kind of where Tournament Central is, drove him down to my car, and then they drove him all the way back around, I think, to like the cemetery where the spectator parking was, and that's the hole we were on. And so I only missed not having a Challenger SS. I had the 15-foot tap in on hole 5, and then I just pitched up from like 50 feet on hole 6 for a tap in on 6. So I didn't have to putt with a Focus, but yeah, I mean, big shout out to him. If I didn't have a caddy, I was probably gonna like call Chris Clemens or something, because I knew he was out there, and he could have helped me out.
So someone did ask, they wanted to know, like, should it be this was actually Hex ICC on Twitter. Should it be against the rules? Obviously right now it's not, but this is more like in theory, should they change the rules to where you can no longer do essentially what you did, right? You can no longer add disc to your bag. Because right now, you can just ask someone you're playing with, hey, let me use that disc real quick. And you can use people from. So do you think the rule right now as is should stay? And Brian, jump in here as well. Or do you think there should be a rule of where it's like, hey, whatever disc you have in your bag, that's the disc you're playing with that round?
That's the first time in my career I've ever even had to think of that rule. I'm sure it doesn't come into play too often as far as like, losing a go-to putter or like a go-to driver that you just don't have a replacement for. I don't know. I could see an argument either way.
What would the rule be? How would it be written to put that into place that you can't do that?
See, I think they would almost even do a bag limit too. So I
Like
think
they
would
count
be
your
like,
discs.
I think it would be like a combo deal where it's like you can only carry 15 discs with you, and if you lose a disc, you can't add any more discs that round. So now it's like almost a strategy thing before we even play of like, what disc do you want to bring? What disc do you want backups of in case you lose a disc? It would get really interesting. I don't think of course like Northwood it would actually matter that much, but like Lake Eureka, that course would matter, right? That you're throwing a lot of different shots, a lot of different discs. I mean, Northwood, we saw Prez, you were throwing the same couple discs down these fairways, right? And so ones that like you're having to throw a lot of shots, it would be interesting to see, like, do I want to put this crazy flippy roller in for that one shot that I might have, or should I take that out to put another, mid-range or something in? So I don't know. It's something that people have always talked about. I don't see it happening. And I don't think it's a massive problem. We don't really have guys that are carrying those 60 disc carts down the fairways. I
want to see it though. Let me
Jake
see
Wolf has it. How much?
Wolf.
I was gonna say how many discs does Jake Wolf have? He might have like 40.
I think he has more than 40.
Yeah, he's got an insane amount.
I'm all for it. Come on.
More discs.
If you want to look silly, go ahead.
More discs might make it even harder too, because you don't know what disc to throw. You have too many options. All right, I got to bring up this tweet. This tweet was fire. This was tweeted at April 29th, 2024. So this was after you won. You tweeted, yesterday morning, I looked into the bathroom mirror and I said, you're going to effing win. Is this okay? Have you done this before at other tournaments? Did you do this before Mid-America?
No, I did not do that for Mid-America. I woke up Sunday morning at like 5 a.m. and I was so antsy and just like legs shaking, just kind of anxiety thinking about the round. I could not fall back asleep. So I just kind of like got up, was wandering around the Airbnb, went to the bathroom and like washed my hands. I just kind of looked at myself and I repeated it 3 times, just looking myself right in the eyes. And I said, you're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win.
Dang. I like that. That's a fire tweet, right? If you're not following Prez on Twitter, go give him a follow. It is at Prez017 over on Twitter. Couple stats for you that are interesting that our Edwin Stats pulled up. You are now the 33rd MPO player to win a major. That's kind of nuts. Only 33 people have ever won a major. You are also one of only 3 players to not have double bogeyed or worse in the event. Your worst score was a bogey. Do you guys know the other 2? Any guesses on the other 2?
I think Aaron Gossage. I saw a tweet. Aaron was
one of them. Third was another top 10 guy. First top 10 of the season.
Oh.
Very good tournament.
Oh,
I believe he was leading. I believe he was leading USDGC after the first round last year as well.
Oh,
Sponsored by a Texas company.
Lone Star.
Was it Mason Ford?
Nope.
Ooh. How about Robert Burridge?
Burridge.
It was.
Robert
he had a
Burridge.
good tournament.
You 3 were the only ones to not take a double bogey or worse. You are also the second player since 2019 to have won a major without winning a Disc Golf Pro Tour win. The other being also a Discraft sponsored player, Corey Ellis, who won the European Open. Your birdie rate ranked 7th. Your birdie rank of 7th. You were the 7th. You had the 7th highest birdie rank. That was actually the lowest for a Disc Golf Pro Tour major winner since 2019. So that just showed you that this course wasn't just about getting birdies. This course was about managing and not taking big numbers, which I think you did better than anyone else out there. Before Sunday's win, you had played in 16 majors with no top 10 finishes and only 2 top 20 finishes. Those were in 2018 Worlds, you got 12th place, and 2019 Worlds, you got 14th place. Now, there might have been only one person out there. He's claiming it. Hunter Thomas is claiming that he was not surprised by you winning this tournament. He's like, if Andrew Presnell is going to win a tournament, this would be the tournament. I think he's full of crap. I think a lot of people are very surprised, and it's not because of a lack of skill. It's simply because you haven't been in this position. Obviously, Mid-America, you went toe-to-toe against Gannon-Burr, which we'll get to in a second. But you haven't been in this position before of where you're in the lead. You've got guys chasing you down. You're on the hardest course we play all year, and you're trying to win a major that you have never even gotten close to winning a major before. I think all of us were thinking, oh, he's going to like probably fall apart. Ricky's probably going to get something going, and like Ricky's going to win, or Nicholas is finally going to win. What do you attribute to being able to go out there and actually get the job done, with a lot of us probably thinking, he's probably not going to do it?
I attribute, I guess, all of my past wins, I know help play a factor, regardless how small of a tournament it was. Especially the small tournaments, like I put a lot of pressure on myself because I'm like the top player at the tournament. So I'm expected to win from almost everybody. And so I feel like I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform well for those tournaments. And, you know, performing under pressure, whether it's trying to win a B tier or, you know, a major championship, it's a little bit different pressure, but it's still pressure. Yeah. Like I've played with like nerves before and stuff. And it definitely wasn't it wasn't like the first time where I felt like, you know, like really in the spotlight, everybody's waiting to see what I do. I feel like I've had a little bit of experience with that.
Did like, I'm trying to think, when, like, was there any like thought process of not just, oh my God, I'm about to be a major champion, but were you also thinking of like the stuff that comes after this? With potential sponsorship situation, potential coming on podcasts and talking, and you know, you're going to be one of the people that Brian, are you going to be at DDO?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are there. So you're going to be at the press conference, and Brian's going to be asking you questions. Like, did that ever cross your mind as you like were walking down hole 18 or anything like that?
Yeah, walking down hole 18, I was definitely living in the moment, but also kind of thinking, you know, all of the stuff that's going to come with it. I specifically was trying not to think about anything before the round. Like at one point I'm like, oh, I wonder how much first place gets. Ooh. But then I was like, don't go look. Do not go look. I don't even care.
This is before the round started?
This is before the round started. I was like, I wonder what first place money is. And then I told myself, don't even go look. I don't care. And so I was like really trying just to not think about anything before the tournament round. And then I mean, once I tapped out on hole 18, Bob Giulio came up to me, gave me a hug, congratulated me, and then said, welcome back to the elite team.
Oh,
so
nice.
So yeah, there's something brewing there. Yeah.
See, I like that. I think this old like thought process of like how to get a disc or how to get a team and all this, I think that's so like in the past, of where in the past, like Discraft wouldn't have moved you up to the elite team. Like if you would have had to wait until next year, right? Like that's kind of how a lot of these.
He told me it was the first time anybody's ever been promoted mid-season.
Yeah. And I think that's what should happen. Like it's crazy to me to think, like, imagine if AB wasn't on some like top level sponsorship or something with a company, and they're like, yeah, sorry, man, you're just gonna have to wait until the end of the year. Like he's already won 3 tournaments. So that's awesome to hear, man. That's very sick. Brian, do you have any specific questions? Because I do have one about hole 16. But do you have something? Jump in.
I do have a question for you. So that day where you guys played just a ridiculous amount of disc golf, I think it was, what was it, day 2 or day 3 when you guys had to play like 30 holes or something like that?
It was day 3, yeah.
Day 3, okay. I lost track of the days after a certain point. All the guys in your card started like running out of gas. And then you, halfway through that round, started hammering the disc. And you were standing like really tall, your posture changed. Did you feel that like macho man kind of come out halfway through the round? Because everybody else's shoulders were like slumped over. And then I watched you come up to 17 and just hammer that drone as hard as you could. and it was perfect, snap to flat, under the basket. You looked head and shoulders better than everybody else. I know you blame it on playing the 2-day or the 1-day 2-round B tiers. Is that really what it is? Like, is that the superpower, or did you even feel that?
So yeah, like on that third round. So I guess like, yeah, the third round on Saturday.
The one that I followed you, yeah.
We were all kind of close in scores, and hole 14, I think I took a par, and then my other card mates went bogey, double bogey, triple bogey.
Yikes.
And I knew I was in 4th place at that time, but then seeing everybody else do that gave me like a huge confidence boost. Just getting back in the mix, because I think I was down by like 4 or 5 at that time, and then Casey triple bogeyed maybe. I forget who exactly it was, but all of a sudden I was within 2 shots.
It was
just
brutal.
like that.
Yeah.
And I know that sparked some confidence, and I know that I was kind of intentionally walking around trying to give off the appearance that like I'm here to play.
Dude,
and
you grew like 2 inches. I swear,
Yeah,
you looked
yeah,
taller. It was crazy.
Walking around with the confidence, just displaying it. And like even when I screwed up, when I putted that putter airballed into the creek, I told myself, I was like, do not look flustered, because everybody else is going to see it, and they're going to have, a little bit of hope. So on the inside, I was panicking for a brief moment, but on the outside, I told myself, like, just remain confident, remain looking confident, especially.
Yeah, I mean those shots down the end, like if you just look at the scores, right? You pull up the leaderboard, you're like, oh my god, like Presnell dominated. He won by 4 shots. It won't really tell the story of Nicholas was playing perfect down the stretch.
He was doing good.
Playing perfect. And if you would have slipped up 1 iota, I don't know what would have happened on 17, 18, right? But you played hole 15 perfectly, and then you made that huge putt on 16 that I want to talk about, because the camera angle they showed led doubt to us watching it live, and also the commentators. The commentators were speculating, like, wait a second, was he inside the circle? What's going on? Do you want to kind of clear the air? Because there is a secondary angle, which I don't know if I sent that to Silas. There was a secondary angle where you can, it's like it's a sideways profile, and you can clearly see that you're way, way beyond the circle. You're not even close. But the angle that they had, and I was trying to like remember, I was like, I was actually right kind of where he was, or at least where I thought you were. And I was like, that's inside the circle. And so I was like, I think he might have foot faulted there. Do you want to kind of explain the situation there? Like, did you talk about whether you're inside or out? And then also, why did it look like you were trying to not walk in front if you were outside the circle?
Yeah. So we get up to 16's green, and it's like me, Ezra, Nicholas. We're all looking for our lives. We determine Ezra's furthest out. He's probably like 10 feet outside circle. He putts, he makes it. And then it's between me and Nicholas. Nicholas is like a foot, maybe a foot or 2 inside circle.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he told me I was out. And so I walk over to my lie, and I'm like, okay, like I'm outside of Nicholas, who's really close to circle's edge. So right away, I'm like, okay, I'm probably in circle 2. I had the green light, and I didn't see any whiskers. There were no whiskers on that side for whatever reason. And then I straddle out to my left, and when I putt it, I'm not thinking about like I'm intentionally trying to step forward, because I always try to stay planted. Whenever I'm circle 2 putt straddling, I try to keep my feet on the ground. And so I think when I putted, I was kind of watching it, and I just instinctively stepped forward, which kind of made it look like I was trying to keep my balance when I should have not been stepping forward or something. And it didn't help that the U-disc or whatever, the live coverage had putting from 30 feet at the top. And then they pan over to Nicholas, and then I think it says putting from 32 feet.
Yeah. That was an insane putt though. I'm glad they showed the replay, because the angle that they previously had was trash. for just like showing the distance and then also just showing how difficult that putt is. I'm glad they had the replay because then you could really see like, oh my God, that putt was ridiculous. Were you always planning on going Annie around that tree because it was away from the danger of going down if you went hyzer?
Exactly. Yeah, I had that tree splitting the basket right down the middle. Straddling to the right probably would have been an easier putt as far as like just kind of throwing it and letting it hyzer in. But I was like, if I airball, then I'm probably going to catch edge and stand up and roll down into that new Casual Creek area. And then you got to go about 100 feet backwards. So that'd be like an instant bogey. And so then I told myself, straddle to the left. If you putt it on anhyzer and you miss, should at least hit flat. You're going parallel with the creek, and you should at least get par at the worst.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the reasons why you probably won this tournament is like decisions like that, being able to like mentally go through that and say, this is actually going to give me the best chance to make it, but a miss is going to hurt me way more than going that way. I love the thought process there of that. Are you a psychopath for throwing that second shot on 18?
The fourth shot? Was it fourth shot?
No, it was the second shot where you piped it through the tunnel.
Okay. So
are you thinking?
So hole
are you
hole
thinking
18,
at all
I threw
like
standard hyzer.
Yeah.
And then my second shot, I just kind of pitched out with a putter.
Sorry, it's your third shot.
So third shot, that shot was incredibly easy. At least in that moment and how I was playing that weekend. I looked at that and I said, I was like, this gap is pretty big right now. All I got to do is throw this Buzz SS on a little bit of hyzer.
When I saw you throw a full shot there, I was like, oh my God, like he kicks a tree and goes, because I was way left once. It is not easy way down there. You're like in a creek by Huckleberry Finn. It is trash. And I saw you go full send. I was like, why is he not just like jump putting to the gap? Yeah. He's got such a huge lead. What is he?
That's his forehand
too. I almost threw a driver and then I switched to a Buzz SS just because I knew if I hit the driver, it could potentially fade out in that left side stuff. And I was like, the Buzz SS will just keep it nice and straight.
Am I crazy, Brian, there for thinking like that was like in the moment? That was like, oh, what are we doing here?
I was thinking the same thing. I was like looking at scores, being like, okay, he could just go bink, bink.
Yes.
Now he's got wide open shot.
Yes.
But I will say, I played with Andrew when me and him were both just playing around the Midwest, like before all of this happened and like with Tour. And he's been doing this for so long. That's his forehand. Like he hasn't thrown that little chop flex forehand that everyone can do with their eyes closed. That's his eyes closed forehand shot. So I trusted the confidence when he threw it. It's like you got to learn that inside out hyzer flip that like cuts back to the right really quick. It's not an optimal play, but you know, you've made it work for so long that you can't really question the confidence there.
Yeah, I didn't even, I knew I wasn't going to hit the trees because my drives for like rounds 1, 2, and 3, they were landing a little bit short of the FPO pad. Mm-hmm. And then I was piping it with an Onyx just right down the middle, and it was good.
It's such a hard backhand. I don't know if it translates well to like on coverage. That the way those trees are set up, that is such a hard backhand to throw.
Yeah, and so my third shot, the final round, I was probably like 50 feet ahead of the FPO pad maybe, and so like the tunnel looked way shorter, the gap looked bigger, and I didn't even think I was going to screw it up at all.
Gosh. You were just cooking. You were cooking. You got to just keep going at that point. You're probably not even thinking about failure at that point.
Yeah, you threw what? You threw a good tee shot, a good up shot on 15, a good tee shot on 16, a great tee shot on 17. So you had like 4 backhands that were really good all in a row. So you're probably just like, I can't really miss right now. Might as well just keep sending it. I think it's also like, it kind of made me think a little bit of like Scotty Scheffler when he 3-putted or 4-putted on his way to win the Masters his first time, where like you're just like, oh my God, thank God I had so many strokes. Like,
yeah,
you didn't need to like do anything crazy, but your first time trying to win a major, it had to feel good to be like, oh wow, like I can just like kick the disc around a little bit and win this. Like you don't have to make a 25-footer to win.
Exactly. I knew going into 17 or into 18, I said if Nicholas birdies, that means I have to get a 7 or better. And I
Yeah,
just
that's
kind of,
nice.
even that third shot, I'm like, okay, if I hit the tree and go way left, I can pitch out. I still have 4 shots or whatever to, yeah, I was feeling pretty good on 18.
So where do you go from here? I think that's a lot of people are questioning this. We've seen people kind of pop off and have a great tournament and then kind of regress to being in the middle of the pack or, making some cuts and jumping up. Like where do you see yourself going from here after winning your first major?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I'd like to say I can just keep riding this momentum. We're going to a course at Country Club or Champions Landing now that probably doesn't suit my game specifically. It's a lot of like open big shots. I still know if I play well that I can compete out there, but like there's certain tournaments later in the year that I feel like I have a better chance of winning. Something like Idlewild, something like the Green Mountain with Brewster Ridge and Fox. I feel like those courses really suit my game, and yeah, I'd like to just keep playing well, and just see what happens. It's already been, in my mind, it's already been a good year so far to get this win, and so like any other decent result is just kind of like a cherry on top. But we still got a long season. I'm nowhere done, ready to quit or anything like that.
Yeah, we
I
were
got a question.
Go ahead, Brian. Yeah.
Real quick. How far do you throw, Andrew? Are you really not throwing as far as you say? Like, can you really not come out here to Emporia and pop off a good round? Like, I can't accept that. You throw pretty far. What's your max?
I mean, I will say I probably am like 425 to 450 on a golf line.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Good.
max. And then
Okay.
if I'm just like wide open field with no OBs or anything, I'm probably like 500 at most, maybe a little bit more than 500.
Mm-hmm. Have you done a tech disc before?
No.
Okay. I have one. I'd like to catch up with you at Champions Landing. I want to see how fast you throw.
Probably
you
like
got to throw
50,
like
probably like 59, 60.
No, you're probably in the mid 60s if you can
All
throw.
right.
Yeah. But I mean, he makes a good point because like a hole that jumps out at me is like hole 15, the hole before you go to the island hole 16.
Yes.
The big arms there. We're throwing our most overstable disc way out to the right, and it's just knifing in, no matter if it's windy or not. That is that distance though. Like, what are you throwing on that shot? Do you need to have something kind of push up to flat a little bit?
Yeah, I probably am gonna throw my overstable nuke that will have to flip up to flat just a little bit, and so any kind of wind that
it gets a little
flipping up
dicey.
to flat gets very scary. And so then I might have to compensate a little bit, throw it a little bit more on hyzer, then I come up 50 feet short.
Yeah. So I think that's where it is. Like if you were able to just generate 50 more feet, right, to where you're able to throw 475, I think 475 is plenty of distance to compete at almost every course.
Yeah.
But I can see like 425. That's where it's like some of these holes are like a little dicey, right? If you want to get super aggressive, you're going to put yourself in a little bit of trouble. So
like playing practice rounds, I try to diagnose which holes before the tournament starts where I feel like I really don't have a good chance to birdie at all. So I just play for the easy part.
Yeah. And I think playing Northwood, like that's the crazy thing. When I went back to the Airbnb and I was talking with Ezra and Goose afterwards, I was like, Andrew played a superb final round. And Goose was like, he shot 4 under. And I was like, yeah, that was a superb final round. He's like, 4 under is not that good out there. And
Yes,
I was like, you can't really say that if shooting 4 under every day wins you the tournament. But I see what Aaron was kind of saying. He was like, Ezra's sitting right here. Ezra shot 8 under. We have other people that shoot 7 under. But I was trying to say, like, under the pressure, under all the circumstances, going out there and shooting 4 under, like, I think we could all play differently. Like if we all stepped up to hole 12 with the idea of like, hey, I just want a bogey, there would probably be a lot of people that would shave a lot of shots off their scores if they were playing for bogey. And there's like, I'm just going to chip a sidearm, or I'm going to throw like a little jump putt off the tee. But that's not how a lot of us play these holes. And then that's why it can get out of control real fast on some of these holes. So I think that's why you succeeded as well as you did out there, because it added in that element that we miss so much, is that course management, saying, hey, I'm not going to actually try to play aggressive on this hole. I'm just going to play this hole for par. I love that. I love watching that too. I love seeing it, the different styles of play.
Yeah, I think I tweeted out, I forget which account asked something, but they're like, how did you not have any double bogeys or worse? And I just said, I didn't try to make one hero shot the entire tournament. You know, if I was in the junk, I just pitched out and said, let's play for the single bogey. I feel like when you try to make that hero shot when you're in the junk, that's just when it's going to stack up.
Last question for you, Andrew, before we let you go. How hard are you pushing Champions Cup is the new home of Champions Cup is Northwood? How hard are you pushing for that?
I wouldn't mind seeing it. It's a great wooded course. It's similar to WR Jackson, I guess. I don't really know what's going on down at the International Disc Golf Center with them getting their course back. But if it's at Northwoods again next year, I'm not going to complain.
All right. Could be the Northwood killer. Brodie, you got anything else for Prez before we let him go?
Yeah, I got some quick news for you then. We found out this last week that IDGC just got some extra land from Wildwood State Park, and they're working on a redesign. It sounds like trees came down, but on certain parts of Jackson, it's not that noticeable. And from what I hear, it just might make the scrambling a little bit more interesting, because that's one of the coolest parts about Jackson is if you're off into the rough, there's not a lot of underbrush that you're kind of screwed by. You can actually throw through some pretty crazy lines in the junk. So we'll see, but it sounds like they're working really hard to get it back there. And I think you can win that one too, Andrew. So it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it if it doesn't go back to Northwoods. I think you'll be fine.
Very cool. Well, Andrew, we appreciate you jumping on here. Good luck at DDO this week. I'll be up there and seeing you probably in the next couple of days or so. And hopefully it finally sets in that you're a major champion, because that's something that you'll be able to hold on for the rest of your career and your rest of your life. So very cool stuff. I know all of us are really proud of you. It was really cool seeing you taking it down. Hand up, I didn't think you were going to do it. I was like, he's going to crack under the pressure. It's his first one. And you super impressed me watching this, like that last stretch. I was like, dude, this guy is just freaking laser solid. So that was really fun. Look forward to seeing more battles like that down the stretch with you. And good luck this upcoming week.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words. And thanks for having me.
See you, buddy.
Of course, brother. Thanks for jumping on here.
Yep.
You guys can check Andrew out too on Rocket League. He's really good at that game. So if you're trying to look for some competition and you think you're a pretty good Rocket League player, try it out. So little Prez action, first time on the pod. That's fun, man.
Love it. 92 wins too. Any guy that's approaching 100 wins, I give immense respect to, because sometimes you're playing those local B tiers. There's guys that are, it says 960 rated. We're talking about ratings. But these guys have played this course every day, and you're going up against the locals that know that course better than you. So the fact that Presnell's been able to get 92, that is experience. And he does know how to win because he's had to do it. And there is a rush coming down the stretch of a C tier. No matter who you're playing against, if you're playing for the win, it feels good. So I don't know. I think it's awesome. He was absolutely laser focused, and I thought it was sweet to watch.
Yeah, it's one of those two. Like we obviously hope that you don't ever wish ill upon people, right? So we don't ever wish like, oh, that was his one shot. But
no,
there is a chance that was his one shot, right? We have seen people before where they get that one shot and they don't make it happen, and then we never see them again. So it's always like when you put yourself in that position, to be able to capitalize, because you never know, like the what ifs, you just have no idea what the future holds. The fact that he got in that position for the first time and he said, you know what, I'm just taking this thing. You guys are gonna have to come and try to get it from me, was just super impressive. So Hats off to him, man.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the weather real quick because we talked about it a little bit. This was a question that was sent into. They wanted to know, this Tennessee 2's Disc Golf on Twitter. They said, do you and Brian feel like the weather plan of MPO to start lead car to only play 2 holes in questionable course conditions plus restarting at the crack of dawn was the best plan available? Or was something more like how 2022 MVP Open was handled a more preferable option? So do you think the way that we ended up playing out the tournament, do you think that was the best option, or do you think there was something else that we could have done that would have been better?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer in regards to what's better or what's worse. I think I was actually thinking about this. I understand that they're trying to get us to play 4 rounds. If there's any possible way to play the major 4 rounds, they're going to do it. But then you look at the obstacles in your way of doing that, which are Widowmakers all over this wooded property. So my thought to myself was, where is the line? Because if you see a few Widowmakers on a course and they're just hanging up there, what do you cancel the tournament? You can't do that. You can't just cancel the tournament because something might fall. But on the other side of it, what if one of them does fall and someone gets seriously injured or killed? Then there's not going to be another major. The tour might be done. So I personally think it was handled as well as they could handle it. There's policies in place. They followed the policies to a T. And it's a terrible situation. It's horrible. Yeah. This is not the course to have 30-mile-an-hour winds and storms and everything like that. I mean, you look at hole 12, the Widowmaker that was sitting over the top. Did you see that?
No, what happened?
It's where they made the mandatory relief area. They made like a little sliver of red paint. Above that was this branch that was just dangling by a thread. It was supported by another tree, and then it was pretty much completely broken off of the tree that it was on.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just sitting there, and it was huge. So it could be there for 10 more minutes, like starting now. It could be there for 10 more years, and there was a few of them all over the course. Yes, they made them mandatory relief areas underneath it, but like, what do you do? How many of those need to be on the course for you to cancel the round? That I don't know.
We had it was like a 30, it had to have been like 30 pounds of bark that it wasn't even a tree. It was just like bark that came off on hole 7, came off of a tree right by the basket. Like I'm stepping up to my like 30-footer and this thing just explodes on the ground. I'm like looking up and like, yeah, it's a little dicey out here. It's a little dicey. So it's not an easy situation. Obviously, like the whole MVP situation, that sucked. You know, we're out there being like, it's fine. Why aren't we playing? And they're like, well, we're having trees fall. And, you know, it's not an easy situation. The only thing I can think of to make it better in the future is to not have MPO and FPO on the same
Hey, Brodie,
course.
I think I've lost you audio. I don't think I can hear you right now.
Silas, can you still hear me?
There we go. I got you now, Brodie.
Am I back?
I got you. Yeah, I lost you right when you were talking about it falling on the basket, like by the basket. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So what I was saying is like I think the only way to like solve this problem, because it's not, I don't think there is a good solution.
Yeah, where's the line?
Yeah, the only way to solve it is to not have 2 tournaments being played on the same course. The fact that they're trying to have FPO and MPO go out makes it really challenging. Like if weather was going to be an issue, they could have done they could have had us go out on hole 1 and hole 10 and fill up the course a lot faster, get through a lot more holes, a lot more groups that way. They could have done things, but when you have FPO out there at the same time as MPO, your options are very limited.
It feels silly to play 2 holes, but they want to get those 2 holes out of the way while they have daylight. And I've done this before as a player. I've showed up really early in the morning to finish my round, and then you go play in the afternoon. I don't know. I thought about it really hard though, because I was walking through the course and I was kind of scanning, and I'm like, okay, if the 40-mile-an-hour gusts come back, I don't know what this one tree is going to do. And I know players were out there on the course scared, and everyone has a different level of what scares them in regards to, you know, being in a wooded course with storms looming overhead. But they made the decision, and it's funny because if it was the other side of the coin and they did cancel the play as soon as they could, people would be really upset about that too. So they got them through. They got 4 rounds done. And I guess we can look back and say, was there a better option? Maybe. I'd love to hear it, but retrospect, who knows? We got 4 rounds of disc golf in. Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go down the leaderboard here a little bit. Let's talk about some of the other guys. We obviously talked about Prez a lot. Let's jump into Niklas Antilla here. He's finished now runner-up for the 3rd time at a major, 2023 Champions Cup and 2022 USDGC. He also led the tournament in birdie rate percentage. So he was at 40% birdie rate, which is nutty on a course like that, almost birdieing every other hole. It just seemed like he was a little bit erratic maybe on some of the holes. Like, was he playing a little bit too aggressive on some holes to take big numbers? Or what did you see out there that kind of prohibited him from being able to chase down Prez?
I don't know. There were certain holes, and again, with the new numbering with some of the holes, it kind of throws me off. But there were certain shapes that he was not nailing. It was those like push hyzers where he gets them out on a steep hyzer. They ride up to flat, move left a little bit, and then kind of check up straight. And he was not dialing in that release point, and it was kicking into some terrible spots. And then he started to get flustered. And I think a lot of players, rightfully so, got flustered by the course. We openly heard Kristen talking about how the course got under her skin, and she doesn't want it to, and she was trying not to, but it got her. And I think for a little bit that happened to Niklas, but then he just like Prez snapping into focus halfway through that long day, Niklas had the same thing happen final round, where it was like, no, I'm going to still win this tournament. I believe that I can win this tournament. And then he's throwing tee shots. He's not even watching them fly, turning around, walking back, parked 2 feet away. He did that like 3 or 4 times final day. He's unbelievably close to being really dominant. After Austin, I thought this guy was just going to be a mainstay for the rest of the tour, but right now it's like certain courses give him some trouble, it seems like. But he blows me away. I love the way he throws the disc.
Yeah, his consistency has been really, really good. And I think kind of going on your point of saying how the course got under Kristen's skin, I think a lot of that has to do with we don't have to play a course like this ever. So we're not used to getting through 14 holes and being even par. Like getting through 14 holes even par on a course like this, you're doing pretty good. You can birdie out and shoot 4 under, and that's a phenomenal round.
Really good.
But some people might be 3 under going into hole 14, or let's say they're 5 under going into hole 12, and then they leave hole 14 even. That could be a really hard mental thing for them to be like, oh my gosh, I'm falling apart. What's going on? When in fact, it's just like, hey, if you can just birdie out, you're in a really good spot. So I love that aspect of it. Ezra Robinson also had a phenomenal tournament. One thing with Ezra that I thought was interesting was, and maybe you kind of can, to me, it was clear as day as what he was doing. It seemed like Sexton and Doss were very confused at his play on 18. That was his only play there.
Yeah, I agree.
To try to throw a crazy hyzer flip through the front, to push up maybe halfway through the gap, then maybe throw a crazy roller to give himself a 60, 70 footer for eagle. That's his only play to win, right?
He's thinking win. That's it. Yeah. Yep. It reminds me of Portland Open when Adam, Corey, and Goose were in that battle on 18, and Corey was like pinched off to the right, and he's like, well, what do I do? Goose is 150 short. He's the best sidearm zone guy on tour potentially. I'm going to give him the respect and throw this crazy roller to try to get up there, and he blew it. And in hindsight, he messed up, Goose messed up the approach, and it sucks, but I know exactly what Ezra was thinking. He was thinking win. That's it.
Yeah. Because if you're in his shoes, if you eagle that hole, now if Presnell just blunders, right, and
messes that one backhand up,
now all of a sudden you're in contention. So, but I thought Ezra did a great job. There was a point in that final round where it looked like he was going to quit. Like it looked like he was just fed up. I think it was hole 13?
Ooh,
okay. You're saying even earlier.
I was thinking, okay, let me go back to the third round. Because I was following them very close, and I actually tracked a crazy stat on Ezra last year. So I've been paying pretty close attention to him because he finally said it felt like I was in Isaac's shadow all last season, and I hated it. And he finally told us that recently. But last year, when he was dominating Northwoods at Ledgestone, he was one of the best players at Northwoods. I followed him closely, and I don't know how I had the free time to do this. I think there are certain commentary teams that throw to me less, especially if they're in like a 3-pack. So I'll have a little bit more free time to track like my own stats that I'm curious about. I tracked quality of fairway hits for Ezra. So like you hit the first available tree and kick to the middle. That's a 1. If you pipe it perfectly, I'm going to give you a 5. It like doesn't hit anything. I know the line is what you wanted the line to be. Not only did he like score like a 3.75 or 4, which is like ridiculous from the stat that I was keeping. He hit 15 of 18 fairways going backhand driver on pretty much every tee shot. That blew me away last year. So then I watched him again this year, and now he's like a little bit more compressed. He's a little bit more controlled, but something tilted him on hole 5. I don't know what it was, but he was like signaling to, his girlfriend or wife. I forget if they're married or not.
I believe they are married. Yeah.
They're married. Yeah. He was like signaling something to her that like, I don't know if it was a spectator that did it in his putt on 4, or I did something. I don't know, but he was so fried, and I thought he was going to quit. And then something happened. He said Nate Doss on the broadcast said he wanted to give him a hug. And he said that really meant a lot to me. I don't know if he was being facetious, but either way, the empathy from Nate Doss did something for him, and he like shot great. Final round, I agree. 13, I believe, is the number that it looked like he was done.
He hit first available. He kind of had a struggle on hole 12. Hits first available on hole 13.
Yes.
And I was just like, he turns around real quick and is just like, looks like dead, and he's just like so, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's just okay, I guess he's done. And he battles back to where literally he's standing on hole 18, and it's like kind of has an outside shot, still winning it. So that, I think he just shows his emotions a little bit more than maybe some other players, which I actually like. I actually like seeing the fire. And I'm kind of that same way of where if I throw a bad shot, I can get really upset at myself, and other people might look at that and be like, "Hey, don't get so down on yourself." But that like kind of fires me up, and I think it might be the same way.
There's a difference between like being pissed off and then like insulting yourself in your head, and just having a sense of urgency. You see with Ricky and Paul when they were like playing back and forth all the time, they'd bend their putters, throw them in the trash, punch the ground. No one's telling them to stop being so hard on themselves. Like some athletes show that, like tennis players do it all the time. But like, it's because they're like, dang, I put everything into that one moment, that one forehand down the line, and I screwed it. I screwed it up. I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm going to get this freaking point back. And I feel like disc golfers do that. And I think there's a fine line between the ones who start making mistakes and they hate that they're getting angry, and then it snowballs. And then it's the players that are like, shape up, shape up right now. I'm going to get to the next shot. There's a huge difference. One is still in the present, and one is like stuck on what happened before. And I see it with players following lead cards like all the time now. And I think I was pretty impressed by Ezra's ability to snap back.
Yeah, you sometimes hear this like, oh, today's not my day, or oh, I'm not throwing well today, or oh, everything's going, I'm getting bad kicks today. And of course, like Northwood, you can't do that. You have to think like a roulette table. Every single spin, every single throw, what you did before doesn't matter. It's a brand new thing. And the ones that are just like caught up of like, I just can't hit a fairway today. It's like, you're going to have a very long day at Northwood. And we saw that from some people for sure.
Oh yeah. Have you played backgammon before?
Yes.
This course reminds me of backgammon. Like, you're going to roll the dice, and then with the dice that you have, even if it sucks, it's your job to make the best possible move of that.
I love that. Yeah.
That's what that course reminds me of.
Yeah. To think that you're going to just roll up and play a perfect round and have great
double
shots.
Sixes. Yeah.
And not get one bad tree kick or anything like that, you're crazy. It's going to happen. It's how you handle it.
Exactly.
Speaking of someone that's been handling it really well, Matty O, 6th place finish is his 20th top 10 finish in his 43 starts at a major. He doesn't have a win yet, but dang, talk about consistency. Someone we didn't even talk about, like all tournament. Like he kind of he shot a 66 final round that kind of shot him up a couple of spots, but 6th place, man. Wow. What a tournament.
He does that though. He does that where he's like not on coverage at all, and then all of a sudden, like you see him, oh, he got 8th place. That's nice. Good for him. But I don't know what it is. I think he deals with more anxiety than people realize. He has this cool guy thing, and
Sorry, he shot 62 final round. Sorry, not 66, 62.
which is nasty.
Yes.
But he let us on at Open at Austin that like his new sponsorship, his new contract was starting to make him feel some extra pressure, and he was starting to feel the eyes on him, and it kind of takes away that like natural, been playing since I was a kid feeling, and now he's playing for other people, and I clearly he's doing well, but I want him to give us a full weekend. I love watching him play when he's on fire. He's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, we've just seen a big change, like with this podcast, with other podcasts, with the Disc Golf Pro Tour Network, with media. Like, you used to be able to just show up to a tournament, and if you won, everyone paid attention to you. You got all the praise. If you missed the cut, no one really said anything, and you just went to the next one. That's not the case anymore. And so we're seeing more and more media talking. And I think some people are feeling that pressure of like, hey, like I can't, if I perform bad here, it's not like no one's going to say anything. I can just slip on to the next one. Like people are going to talk about it. And we see some people that they're handling it well, and some people, they don't handle it well. It's just, it's just the nature of the beast. Some other good finishes here. Chris Dickerson shoots 6 under, tied with Joel Freeman also at 6 under, and Joseph Anderson should have probably won Rookie of the Year last year. Probably should have won Rookie of the Year. Very solid player. All shooting 6 under, finishing in 6th place. Other 2 big name guys in the top 10, Calvin Heimberg at 5th, Ricky Wysocki at 3rd. Ricky, for a moment there, I texted Trevor and Hunter. I think it was maybe after he made that big putt on, was it 7 or 8? He made a big circle 2 putt for birdie, and I was like, Ricky's going to win this thing. And this is me thinking like the guys at the top are going to see Ricky coming up. They're going to slowly come down. But he kind of struggled there on hole 14 and kind of shot himself in the foot. And that was pretty much his tournament right there. But those 2 guys, Calvin hasn't won one yet. Ricky hasn't won one in like 1,200 days or something crazy like that.
Yeah, 2017.
I think it's now surpassed. I think it's been more days since his last win than it took him to win his first.
Wow.
I think
in 2011, potentially. Yeah.
I think
2011, he won PDJ Championship. Wow. That's crazy.
I think it was less days to win his first since, and now it's more since his last. So kind of crazy to see what transpires, because you got to know that both of those guys got to be feeling it on their backs, right? Got to be feeling like, man, I got to win one of these things.
I feel like, though, for Rick, he has this crazy competitive stamina. After all these years of winning and dominating and going through his era where everyone thought you were going to have to play like Ricky, like 2016, 17, I thought I was going to have to be forehand dominant because of him. I thought forehand was going to be the future of disc golf because he was so dominant, and I was never going to putt like him. But then to be here 7 years later and still feeling gutted to not win tournaments, that's a special thing. Like, you see some players sign the big deal and get paid the money, and they kind of get comfy and they don't start playing as well. And it happens across the whole sporting world. There's a bunch of guys in the NBA with the Supermax contract that are just absolutely not delivering on what they're getting paid. And I don't know. Rick just blows me away. Like when AB beat him at chess.com, the interview that we had to do with him afterwards was wild. He was really hurt. And I'm like, dude, you've been doing this for so long. That is such a commendable trait that you can't teach to anybody.
Yeah, the competitiveness of just not wanting to lose.
Exactly.
Finishing out the top 10, we have AB sneaking in there, getting a nice little top 10 for him to keep his top 10 streak going this year, which he's just having a phenomenal season. We talked about earlier, Robert Burridge also sneaking in there with the top 10. Paul Macbeth, at a moment, I think we were all thinking, oh, wait a second. Like there was a moment there. I think he was like, 5 under through 6, or I think maybe even 6 under through 8.
He looked good.
He had that stretch of where we were just like, oh, hold on a second. So that was a good finish for him. And then Gannon Burr also finishes out the top 10. All those guys shooting 5 under. Let's talk Casey White here.
Oh, dang.
Casey White. He ends up shooting 4 under for the tournament.
Yeah.
I think at one time he was he 14 under?
Uh-huh.
Or 13
yeah, he was.
under?
He was 14, I believe. Hurts.
What do we kind of equate this to?
It's actually yeah. It's the flapper. It's the finger, and I saw it, and it was disgusting.
Really? It's the cut.
Oh, he completely split it open. It was disgusting, and yeah, it destroyed everything. He was throwing the disc hard, and he throws these really flippy drivers really hard. So the lines are very specific that he has to nail down. So the moment something takes you out of that flow where you have to throw a little slower, the line changes, the angle changes, everything changes.
Oh, wow.
And on 6, he throws this really flippy DD1 on this like high line that doesn't even look like it can get over. It takes such a specific amount of speed. And then when he threw that correction shot, I believe that 3rd round, he was like looking at his hand, and then he showed me, and it was just straight up like disgusting. Like bad.
What finger was it?
Middle finger on the throwing hand.
Oh, so it's just right on the rim every time.
Forehand, backhand, and he tried to do the liquid skin, and it wasn't drying fast enough. I don't know if it's because it was humid, but then he tried the tape, and the tape made him throw like garbage because I can't throw with tape. I've tried it; it's awful. And then he took this tape off, and nothing worked, and his entire flow was destroyed. And you know, who knows what he was dealing with in the moment, but he wasn't throwing as hard. And in the interview afterwards, he said it was taken away from him. Like he was so gutted, and he went home and super glued his finger shut, like just took the industrial strength super glue and just tried to put it back together. And clearly it didn't work. It was tragic because he was playing unbelievably well.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to give us a little more context there, because you know, we hear all the time from a lot of players where they'll be like, "Oh, this and this and this," and you're like, "Did that really actually have an impact?" But if you're saying like it was a serious cut, we've all had something right there of where like every time you throw, it just hurts more and more and more. It's hard to fully commit. It is. It's just super hard to fully commit when that's happening. So
yeah, it was nasty. It was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. And then, like he said in his interview, he's my favorite interview because of how honest he is. Like he doesn't sugarcoat anything. And he's like, Northwoods takes the most commitment of any course that you'll ever play. Every shot requires full commitment. And I lost all my commitment because of that. And it sucks. And I'm sad. And I was like, damn, what are you going to do?
Dang. A couple call outs that I want to say that had good finishes. Freddie Meza, for those that don't know, he's a local Texas guy. I've played in a couple local events down in Texas with him. Insane putter. Yeah. Absolutely insane putter. Got to play with him in the first round where I think we were the first card out. And so after, 7-8 holes or whatever, he's like leading the tournament at 4 or 5 under. He was playing insane. Great finish for him, 15th place. That definitely has to be his highest finish at a major. You got Kyle Klein, Aaron Gossage, and Yuli all in the top 20. Last year's Champions Cup winner, Isaac Robinson, finishing at 22nd. Shout out to Ezra Aderhold, who now has the course record at 8 under. I played with him second round. One of the worst rounds I've ever seen from him. He shot 76. Absolutely terrible. He's thinking in his head, I have no chance of making the cut. Comes out, shoots a 61, 15 shots better, 10 birdies, 2 bogeys, 8 under to make the cut, to make the cash, and finish in a top 25. So that's some impressive fortitude right there for Ezra. Going down a little bit more here. Probably just want to mention now, like the cut line, which, hey, PDGA Live, it only took you, 4 months to figure out how to put a cut line on your little thing. So we appreciate that. But the cut line was crazy. I kind of mentioned it at the beginning. It was absolutely insane. There were so many of us that were at 7 over and outside the cut line. And it came down to Luke Taylor on hole 18, and he ended up bogeying hole 18, and it dropped him out of the cut and moved all the 7 over people in. Wow, crazy. That's
what do
you do in that position? You're at 7 over par. You're inside the cut right now at 7 over par. All right. do you just play for par and everyone gets in, or do you try to birdie and kick all those people out? Like, what do you how do you play that?
I mean, Luke Taylor is a young player, and I believe his goal is to just be good. If I'm him, I'm trying to perform in the moment. I'm trying to, succeed when the pressure's high on me. I don't know. That's if I'm him. If I'm 30-year-old Brian Earhart on tour looking for some cash, yeah, I'm going to make the cut. I need that $200.
Okay.
So I'm for sure throwing a little hyzer. I'm throwing a little flick again. I'm blasting a shot, and I'm getting up and down, and I'm taking my money because these guys are too good.
Yeah. All right. Let's go down and talk about some notable names that didn't make the cut, because at a tournament like this, when you only have 100 people, 40 guys are making the cut. That means a lot of good players are not going to make the cut. First one, Corbin Milczewski.
Yeah.
Aces hole 1 to start his final round. Starts his round 3. I mean, you missed the cut. You missed the cut by 1. I don't know how upset you are. I mean, I'm sure you're kind of bummed a little bit, but you did get an ace on hole 1. That's just a crazy start. Nathan Queen misses the cut. AJ Carey, Mason Marchbanks, Gavin Babcock, Drew Gibson, Andrew Fish, Chris Clemens, Kevin Jones shoots 13 over, misses the cut. Paul Kranz, 14 over. Vino Makala, 14 over, misses. Nico at 14 over. Benjamin Callaway, who almost just won a Disc Golf Pro Tour event. You've got Connor O'Reilly, JT Hancock, Albert Tam, Chandler Kramer. We're at 17 over at this point.
Yeah.
Kevin Kiefer's at 20 over. Again, this through 3 rounds. These guys didn't even play 4 rounds. Sullivan Tipton at 21 over. Thomas Gilbert at 23 over. And we scroll all the way down to 90th place, and you finally get to Eagle McMahon at 26 over par. What's your big takeaway here?
All right. So I followed him the feature card round doing the broadcast, and here's what I thought it was, because it was like the worst I have ever seen him throw. But I
both
tried
sides, backhand and forehand.
The forehand, I got to commend him. He's trying really hard to get the chop back, but the elbow is still very cautious. He's not like whipping the sidearm.
He's not loosening it up yet.
No, it's like pinned up against this side, and he's just chopping. And that actually looked okay. But I don't grade his forehand anymore because I assume that it's never going to be what it was, which is the craziest shot that we've ever seen in disc golf. Like multiple players, Seppo Payu and Simon Lizotte both say that Eagle's sidearm at its peak was like the most impressive thing in disc golf that they've ever seen. And
the only one that's close is the AB. That's the only one that's somewhat close.
Somewhat close, but yeah, it was just a little bit different. But the backhand was just all over the place, and I attribute it to this. Yes, he's going to be rusty, but I'm never going to say, oh, he's terrible, because no, this is Eagle McMahon. This is a guy that came off of a terrible injury and then wins a major averaging 1070. And that's where I think, real quick, side note, that's where sometimes the ratings do come in when people say, wow, Paul McBeth averaged 1070 and got second. That's crazy. They can be storytelling agents, and that's about it. But we'll talk about that later. But Eagle this week, it looked like a mixture of learning his discs. He's thrown the same company for a long time, and he didn't really know what these things were doing. I don't know how much time he spent with them, but you can tell he was just like, I could hear him talking to his caddy, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to throw this disc or this disc. He was talking about release angles, but then he doesn't know how hard he can throw yet either. He's still so fresh off the recovery. So not only are you trying to figure out the lines that these discs fly, you don't even know how hard you can throw. So it looked like a bunch of sprayed misfires. The timing was off. I felt bad, but like, you don't get any feedback playing Northwoods. Like, you don't know how these discs are flying because you're hitting a tree 200 feet in front of you. It's like the worst place to get back on your feet to learn a new bag. But he tried, and he carried himself phenomenally well. Like, that was a struggle. And I think
he didn't DNF.
Yeah.
And he could have easily.
Nope.
And honestly, I want to give props to everyone in the field, because last year at Ledgestone, hole 12, I think, was the victim to like It's something insane. Like 8 MPO players
Really?
DNF'd on hole 12 last year. And I don't know if it's because we're super hard on people or if people are getting super hard on DNFers, but it used to get to the point of where people are just like, I'm not playing well, DNF. And that's soft. That is 100% soft. And so I like the fact now that only one person DNF. That's Corey Ellis, who's having some sort of shoulder issues, right? So I commend him for that, because easily he could have been like, nah, man, I tweaked something in my elbow. I can't play anymore. And he didn't do that.
No, because he's playing the long game. And to me, that shows that he's like, yeah, I'm here because I'm playing the long game to be a champion again. I want to work through this embarrassing, spray job of a tournament, really, because I genuinely want to learn my body again. I need to learn how hard I can throw. I need to learn what angles make sense for me now. I'm not throwing as many forehands, so I need to learn to shape the backhand with whatever, my shoulder is like now. And then now I have to learn a completely new company where I had so many comfort molds at Discmania. I now have to find those here. But first, to even find those, I have to get back up to speed. I have to get back to throwing 75 miles an hour. And he just couldn't do that here. He got no feedback. So I'm looking forward to seeing him like at OTB, other courses, that at least allow him to miss by a fraction of a degree. Yeah. So he can at least, learn where his game is at now. But putt looked great. I thought the putt looked fantastic. So, yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I still thought the stroke looked good. I'm excited to see him throughout the year. But please, I just want to see him. Like, I don't want him to disappear again. I feel like he's going to be like a Jokic character in disc golf, where the moment he retires, he's gone. We'll never see Eagle McMahon again. He'll just be living on a mountain somewhere. And I really would be sad if that happens. So please keep playing tournaments this year, Eagle, please.
Let's hop over to some FPO. Let's run through it. We have Eveliina. Like I said, Eveliina will be joining the podcast next week. She shot just enough. You had Hannah Blomroos, who was doing everything she could to try to chase her down, even eagling the final hole on hole 18, which, let's be honest, wasn't really even a par 5, really. But she shoots 64 on the final day to lose by 1 to Eveliina, who ends up shooting 8 under for the tournament and taking down now her second win this year. You have Owen Scoggins, who also had a phenomenal tournament, finishing tied for second as well. Silva Saarinen, for a moment, I was like, wait a second, is she going to win this thing? She's someone I've been hyping up as well. I think she has one of the best putts in FPO. Baller. Maybe even better than Owen. We talk about how good Owen's putt is. She might have an even better putt than Owen's. So that was really cool to see. Krista Tatar just didn't really seem to have it the final day. Like, it seemed like there was multiple times the door was opened, and looking in the top 10, she shot the worst final round of everyone in the top 10 outside of Valerie Manahano, who shot one shot worse than her. She just did not have a good final round, and that's like where she could have easily put the stamp down. And we saw her, she made up 8 strokes in that 4-hole stretch or something in round 3. She needed something like that again in round 4. She just didn't have it. Rachel Turton, great British player, maybe one of the best interviewers, or like one of the best FPO interviewers. A lot of people were talking about how they really liked her interview. I don't know if that's because of the British accent, and we're all kind of suckers for the British accent.
Maybe.
But great tournament for her. 3 under par, 6th place. You have Missy Gannon, Ella Hansen at 1 under par, Heidi Lane at 4 over. So there was a little bit of gap there between 7th and 9th. And then Holland Hanley and Valerie Manahano finishing out the top 10. I don't know if you saw the trend. All the top 6 players were not born in the United States.
Yep.
USA gonna have to figure something out here. It's gonna be a European takeover.
I'm excited for it. Let's see it.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something right now, because it is they're coming over here and they're saying this is actually our tour. I love it. Yeah, so we'll see. I know Missy Gannon's got that fight in her. I know she's probably not super happy with how she played. I know Ella Hansen and Holland are both, they always want to win. So I'm interested to kind of see what happens moving forward. I like this tournament a lot because I didn't know who was going to win. I agree. It was very, very exciting to see kind of the back and forth. Krista Tatar made a post on her Facebook or Instagram saying Champions Cup and 8 weeks of tournaments are finally over and I'll be heading home. My performance wasn't what I was hoping for, but I tried really hard to make things work. It just wasn't enough. What put a huge smile on my face was the enormous support from fellow Estonians. You guys made this week memorable. You were a great reminder of that. Nothing is as important as being cared for by your friends and family. Some sort of word that I cannot say. And then going home to practice now, take care. So I don't know when we'll see Kristen again. I think she's just not even doing the West Coast, I believe. So we might see her again somewhere in the Midwest. I'm not entirely sure. But 8 weeks over here, that's a long time. 2 full months over here. That is a long time. I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
So I brought this up a couple weeks ago, I want to say, with foot faulting and people jump putting and their jump putt being incorrect. A bunch of people started jumping on it as well, posting screenshots of Kristen, her jump putt, and having the disc go in her hand, both feet off the ground. What do we see? We see the next week, Kristen's not jump putting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that seemed, and they brought it up on coverage. I don't know if you remember that, but they did bring it up on coverage saying like, hey, is Kristen not jump? What's going on here? I think it's a direct thing with social media. I think she's seeing people tell her that you're foot faulting, you're cheating, you're not playing by the rules. And my question is now, we've seen it with Krista Tatar. We're now seeing with Val. Val is also starting to get a bunch of these tweets and posts and stuff like that of where the disc is in her hand, both feet are off the ground. Are we going to see more pressure from social media, you think, impact players' play? Do you think players are actually going to look at stuff like this and be like, holy crap, I need to fix this?
I think it depends. I think there's a couple types of athletes that, and they all view the game a little bit differently. But what I'm thinking of is maybe Kristen did see the comments. Maybe she did see the screenshots. Maybe she just said that and went, oh, I didn't even know that. And then she just changed. It could just be, as a matter of fact, is that I have integrity for the game. I didn't know I was doing this. Thankfully, no one called me because, again, in the moment, it's so hard to call that.
Oh, it's so hard. Bang, bang, play.
Yeah, it's easy to look back and screenshot and zoom in. And, like, we can't do that. So it could just be straight up integrity, and that's it. But then there's other athletes, and I've had, I've been out here on tour for a while. This is like my 7th or 8th year, and you have these conversations all the time. And some players' mindset is like, well, if no one's going to call me on it, I'm going to keep doing it. And at what point, like, where's the breaking point going to be? I don't know. I don't know if a rule change just needs to happen, like, move the circle back at a certain point, because I've noticed that a lot of players would much prefer being just outside C1 than just inside C1. Mm-hmm. A 32 footer, that's a tough putt. 32 footer is a tough putt, but if you got that little spin stepper, easy money most of the time if your release point's on. So, maybe we just see on the Pro Tour level the circle get pushed back, and maybe we look at the Circle 2 putting stats for FPO and MPO. Maybe there's 2 different distances that get set up based on what the current putting stats are. But I've thought about this for so long, Brodie, and I could go on about this for a while, but I genuinely don't know how we can police it other than having someone like going
it's
like
impossible. Unless we all have like sensors on our feet to where they as soon as like you get pressure off the ground, they go off. I mean, it's impossible. It's literally impossible.
Yeah. Or the players, or you get to a point where I've heard these conversations amongst players after I stopped touring, like talking about what types of jump putts or step putts or hop putts are most of the time illegal, and then starting to call that. But who's going to step up and start doing that? Who's going to be the bad guy and stop whatever it is in its tracks? I don't know. I don't think we can save it at this point. And I haven't seen anybody who's blatantly breaking the rules on that. I haven't seen that yet.
I do feel like the social media side, the pressure of people posting, tagging you in Instagram, I do feel like that is, we have seen it in pace of play. Mm-hmm. Like it is something that's true. People are now like feeling like, holy cow, I have every single time. So we have seen it. So I don't know. I think to me, it's almost easier if the social media pressure of the fans and
It could be.
spectators, I think that puts more pressure than us like trying to having to call it as players.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you go? Because I do think it's a big deal, because if everyone does follow the rules, the game gets played a different way. And you know, right now it's like if you can get away with it, you can get away with it, and you can kind of hot putt, step putt, whatever, and your card mates are too focused on what they're doing to care about a little fraction of a distance.
Course.
But if it's outside circle 2, like if for MPO, if the stats line up, if outside circle 2 you can jump putt, and inside circle 2 you have to stay planted, who knows? The game might get played a different way. People might start learning spin putting a little bit more, and we see some really cool highlights because of that. But I think something more structural needs to change, and I don't think we can rely on the players to like revolt and say we're going to start calling these like fractional, foot faults. I just don't see it happening. And again, there is a dynamic to calling someone on a petty foot fault. I've been a part of one. It's horrible.
Yeah,
and
it's not good.
And I don't care what people say is theoretically okay. Like, oh, theoretically you should be fine. It doesn't matter who you're playing with. It does. It does matter, and it sucks sometimes. So I think something bigger is going to have to happen, like the rules in regards to C2 or C1 will eventually get adjusted. That's my thought.
So speaking of social media, we had a predominant social media person that came out on Twitter hot and then just disappeared, and now comes back with this tweet. And I am talking about none other than Austin Hannum. He said, "I get stroked today for being 12 seconds late, but PDGA is still allowing dudes to play FPO. Get your priorities and blank together at the PDGA." Now, regardless of what you feel on whether transgender women should be able to play an FPO or not, the biggest problem with this tweet was the timing, right?
Yeah.
If Austin Hannum was in 10th place and he said something like this, I think it's a little bit different issue. He was in dead last. And so I think it was very easy for a lot of people that disagreed with him to just dogpile on that. I mean, I think too, also the way he approached it's probably not the best constructive way of getting your I mean, I guess it gets your point across, but let's before we go into Natalie Ryan's response, what is your take on all these players complaining about being late? To me, it is crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah. It's hard for me, again, to talk from the outside now because I never had to deal with the rule, but I always showed up an hour and a half beforehand, and I guess if everybody knows the rule, you get there on time. I don't know. Unless there's some crazy infrastructural thing preventing you from getting there, that just sucks for you, and it's a new rule, and I think over time, players are going to understand the severity of it, and if it's 12 seconds and they're being super harsh with it, which if they're going to impose something like that, they kind of have to, otherwise favoritism becomes a thing.
Of course.
I mean, it sucks. Like, it does suck. Like, if I'm on the card, I don't care if I'm on last card or lead card, and I see Austin coming and he's 12 seconds late, I hate that. But it's the rule, and it happens. But I'm still going to be like, well, dang, I still want to play against him and, play him for score and not have those 2 strokes count. But that's more of like a camaraderie thing on the disc golf course. So if the rule's in place and it's firm and it's followed, to a T, then I don't know. There's no other like opinion I can have.
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves has always been like, I don't think the time and place to tell us about the Kevin Jones DJ show and the book signing and the do-si-do that's happening where you get free punch tonight. Like, I don't think we need to get to our tee time 5 minutes early to hear all that stuff. Like, I also don't like getting to my tee time and being like, hey, just want to let you know, I know you guys are about to tee off. These are all the things that are different about the course today. It's like, I wish that was in an email. I wish that was in a text, something prior. So I do understand that is the reason why they implemented that. they also implemented too, kind of like what you were saying of like, hey, to fix this jump putting situation, like they need to do something. I think they were tired of players rolling up 5 seconds before their tee time.
Yeah.
And then being like, okay, what's the how do I get into scoring? What's the and it's like, bro, we're trying to tee off right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do I think 5 minutes is too much? Yeah, maybe 3 minutes, whatever. But that's beside the point. They made a time, 5 minutes. We all know.
Yeah.
Don't show up late. It's not very hard.
Yeah, I think it's exclaiming a frustration. I mean, we heard it from a bunch of players this year already.
Yes.
Like,
Yuli hates it. Yuli hates it.
Over time, if the rule stays and it doesn't get adjusted, it's either you show up 5 minutes early or you don't show up 5 minutes early. And, I think 3 minutes would be a great adjustment, and maybe they will. And maybe if the players committee, at the end of this year or the next time they meet with the tour, say, hey, 5 minutes, we're just sitting around. Like the guy gives us 20 seconds of information, and now I have to sit and stew when I could be putting. Maybe they change it, but that's how it is right now. So
yeah, it's hard to side with anyone when the rules are just kind of right there for you. So
yeah.
All right. So Natalie Ryan responded on her Facebook, I believe, saying immediately after the most serious threat our sport has ever seen, Austin Hannum decides to use the exact language that led to that threat being made in the first place. Calling trans women anything other than women, just as he did today, invites people to take matters into their own hands and call in further threats of violence or worse. PDGA, if you're serious about everyone's safety, then this needs to end now. So I'll say a couple points. First one, again, I think there's a time and a place. I think Austin, unfortunately, probably not the best time to make a statement about that because everyone's just going to jump on how you're playing the tournament. The other thing I would say too is I don't, this idea of like exciting violence or hatred or anything towards people. Obviously, I'm super against all that. The only thing that's somewhat ironic though to me with the Natalie Ryan post, it wasn't that long ago that Natalie Ryan made a post saying like, burn it all to the ground, which I thought was like a crazy thing to say. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if that was on Insta. I think it was on Instagram.
Of course we remember it. Yeah.
Of where it was just like, that to me seems like a pretty bad threat. So I think both of them have said some stuff that's probably, if they could go back in time, probably would change the language and say how they say it. Again, this is something that I don't think anyone is going to see eye to eye. You're going to have some people that believe this is what should happen. You're going to have some people that believe this is what's going to happen. At the end of the day, we just have to eventually, the PDGA, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, they're going to have to make a decision, and then everyone's just going to have to deal with it.
Yep. And I wish I could say more on this, but again, Brodie, from like my perspective, if Austin shoots a hot round, comes in the booth and does an interview with me, he gets my full respect because he's an athlete that shot great and deserves an interview. If Natalie shoots a hot round and comes into the booth and gets an interview, full respect from me as well, because I can't, even if someone likes me or I like them or they don't like me or I don't like them, they get my respect. So on this topic, it's such a slippery slope for me because I want to stay as non-biased as possible. And even though I've tried to be that, I've gotten people on really seemingly both sides of this argument that think I am biased one way or the other. And I'm trying my absolute hardest to portray that I'm not. I really genuinely, journalistically, as someone who has to have good rapport with everyone, I try so hard to not get too deep into this conversation. It sucks. This whole thing sucks. And I hope the right solution is determined. And that's all I can really say.
Yeah, and it starts getting real funny when when both sides start getting upset at you, and you're like, wait, how is that possible that you're mad at me, but then this?
That's because I'm not taking a stand, and that's why. And I could talk about the things that I feel about this, but because I want to be fair when I interview people, I want them to feel like I care about them being there, no matter who they are. And if they're allowed to play, and if either division or whatever, they're going to get full respect from me. So I'm trying to stay in cool with everyone, but being media, it's like you really turn into the bad guy quick. You go from being a player to being the guy that people don't want to talk to sometimes. So especially being an employee of the tour itself. So I do my best to like keep rapport with people, but it's sometimes tough out there, especially with this topic.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about the Manufacturer Cup here. So after Champions Cup and Andrew Presnell's first place finish, that's getting 25 points to Discraft. Discraft now has a commanding lead at 242 points over Discmania at 185. Then you have Innova, Dynamic Disc, Prodigy, MVP, Westside, Mint, DGA, and Castaplast finishing out the top 10. Question for you, Flight Diary. Any sort of comeback? I've seen a lot of people asking me to ask you what's the plan there. Too busy to make a comeback?
It will, but if it does, it will come back sporadically with no marketing. And if you're subscribed to the podcast, you can spread the word. I have one in the chamber, but this year I feel so bad because the podcast grew really big, and I just was in a transition period of my career, clearly, getting to where I am now. And now I'm like helping produce Jomez stuff, and I'm like dealing with, I'm doing Tournament Central now, and now I'm flying to the booth or I'm on the course, and I feel like a chicken with my head cut off right now. And any like passion project kind of goes by the wayside unless the tour wants it. And the tour wants to do Flight Diary, but it's not how I really want it. Like, it wants to be like, they want to film it and they want it to have lights and everything like that. And the coolest part about Flight Diary for me was getting to drive my van up to someone's house or go in, Paul Macbeth's closet to set my microphones up and have a really like cool, intimate talk where they tell me how the heck they got here. Because I'm always curious, like, what breaking point in someone's life leads them to become a professional Frisbee player. And that's why I think the podcast was cool, because it's the story that I had to tell everybody in my life when I decided to do this. Like, it makes complete sense to me, and it makes complete sense to the guests that I interview, but it's still a goofy story sometimes. And, if I do them again, it'll be like I drop one here, people like it. 3 weeks later, I might do another one, but it has to be convenient for my crazy schedule, because now I'm towing the media trailer for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. There's a bunch of logistical stuff with that. I'm doing interviews, but they're not Flight Diary style. I did Ken Climo last year. We're doing 3 more this year. I'm kind of like the Culk of the Disc Golf Network right now. I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I really love doing that show. But it was when I was a player. It's when I had the van, and life was a little more simple for me. So
yeah, I think the essence of that show is what you're talking about, of like where if it does get a little bit too overproduced, or if you start having producers being like, oh, bring this up, talk about this, it might lose that allure that I think people like so much, where it just felt like two disc golfers sitting down talking about disc
telling
golf.
Stories. Yep. And how you became who you are now. Like, why aren't you a teacher? Why aren't you a doctor? Why are you playing Frisbee golf, living in a van full time? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think, there's plenty of podcasts out like the one that we do here, where we're basically talking about the news and what's going on. Yeah. And that sits in its own unique spot that I think a lot of people really enjoyed as well. So if you guys haven't yet, jump on that. It's called Is it Flight Diary or Flight Diaries?
Flight Diary. No, just the Flight Diary. Yep.
Okay, Flight. Yeah, jump on that on Spotify, Apple, all your listening platforms. And like he said, no promo. You might just see one day you wake up and there's a new episode there waiting for you.
My man, thank you.
We got a few things left here, and then we will close it out. Wild Story of the Week. Hey guys, just wanted to start by saying I love the show and appreciate what you all are doing for the sport of disc golf. I played with a guy round 1 of the tournament who at the beginning of the round said that he couldn't keep score because he didn't have paper. TDD forgot to provide paper scorecards, and he didn't have his phone. To me, totally fine. We are MA3, and it doesn't matter with having three others keeping score. Round goes just fine. The guy ends up playing on 3rd card or something. So on the final day, I'm finishing up my last hole with my card. I actually ended up winning, which was my first ever W. And after I tap in, I go to the hole that my brother is finishing up on. The guy from round 1 is on his card, and as my brother taps out and I'm freaking out, hugging him, saying I won, the guy slams his phone on the ground and destroys it. He then says, my phone took a crap. I don't have scores.
Oh.
His phone is completely shattered and green screened. He proceeds to take multiple discs out of his cart and start throwing them into the woods as far as he can. He rips off the handle from a Zuka and slams it into a tree and continues freaking out by pacing up and down the street and picking other discs up and throwing them all over the place. He even blows up on friends of his that he rode with to the tournament, and I thought they were going to start throwing punches. After about 10 to 15 minutes, he slams his cart and discs into the car, and they leave. My brother and I are talking to the TD while he's freaking out, and he said, don't worry about scores. We will figure it out. All of that happened, guys. We were MA3. He was probably 40 years old. He finished 13th place. Absolutely nuts. Thanks for reading. If you have a wild story and you want us to read it on the next podcast, send it in at wildstorytour@gmail.com. And right there, Brian, that is why one of the stupidest things that we do in disc golf by shaking hands on the 18th tee, that is why that was created for guys like that. Because you're not going to get a handshake from that guy after you tap out on 18.
Oh, man. Wow.
So you got to do it before.
That's insane. But it takes me back, though. It takes me back to the good old days.
Yeah, I mean, there's a guy locally here that I won't say his name, but he knows who he is. Of where, you know, we just have a group of guys. We go out and we play. There's been multiple times where he'll just walk off the course on hole. Like, we're playing casual, like, competitive rounds. Like, it's not for money or anything. He'll just walk off the course after like 16 holes, and you're like, all right. Yeah, I mean, disc golf can get to you like that, I guess, sometimes. So
it does.
If you got any crazy MA3 stories like that, MA3 is a crazy place. If you haven't played in a tournament, I highly suggest just playing in one, because you will see crazy stuff happen in MA3. I'm sure you have plenty of stories.
I got one.
Okay, go for it.
Let me hit you. I was playing advanced. I was playing a tournament in Wisconsin. It was in the middle of summer. I'm playing with a man named Glenn, and he's wearing jeans. He's wearing like thick jeans, work jeans with work boots on. And I'm like, man, this guy's got to be hot. We get to like the third hole, and he's sweating bullets. And I'm like, yeah, of course he's hot. He's wearing thick jeans. The man's wearing denim here. Brodie, the man takes his jeans off to reveal jean shorts underneath.
He was double denim?
He was double denim. Glenn, that man lives in my soul forever, because I almost lost it. And I was like, is he joking? Did he like see himself in the mirror? Like, oh yeah.
Bet?
Oh yeah. Nope, this is going to be perfect. Morning, cold. I'm going to take the jeans off. The jean shorts are going to come out. It was a moment I'll never forget. And,
have you ever rocked jorts before?
Yeah, I used to wear Jinkos.
Comfortable.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we 1 year at Florida, we had a jorts crew. So there was like 10 to 15 of us that would all go to the football games, all in jorts. Yeah, I mean, we were ultimate frisbee players, so we had nasty tan lines too. So jorts are surprisingly super comfortable. Surprisingly.
What length are you wearing? What length jorts? Are you going Jinko style down to the ankles? You going mid shin?
No. I'm talking jorts. I'm talking, 6-inch seams.
You're talking like
yes, to where if you position your legs incorrectly, you might give a little show.
Oh, that's a power move. See, I was thinking more like Limp Bizkit style.
Oh, okay.
That was my thought, my first thought. But
no, we're going like runner shorts, jorts, like all the way up top.
Performance.
Yeah, good airflow too, like phenomenal airflow. So very, very nice. All right, we got a couple listener questions here to tap us off. We got Frank. This is a good one for you to answer here, Brian.
Okay.
Taking my 16-year-old son, James, to play an MJ18 at Junior Worlds this year in Tulsa.
Nice.
Our first time traveling out of the state for a tournament. We're arriving Friday, the day before the field events. Any tips on practicing the courses or any tips in general for us to consider? I'm driving from New York, so we will have our own car there. This is from that's from Frank.
Okay. Well, take a look at the courses. And this is in Tulsa, correct?
Tulsa, yeah.
Windy. And if you're in upstate New York, I don't know where he is in New York, you might play a lot of woods golf. So if this is your first big trip, take a look at the courses you're going to play. And if there's a hunch that this state's going to be really windy, it's probably going to be really windy. Pack accordingly. You might have a bunch of flippy stuff that works on your home course. And if you don't play a lot of other courses, your bag is very tuned to very specific shots. So bring a lot of extras and then go to the field. Don't even go to the course yet, and throw discs out at that elevation, wherever it is, throw against the wind, and see which discs are flying well in that state. I think if you don't go out of state a lot to play, you'll surprise yourself at which ones fly better out there than they do at home, even if the elevation difference is not the same. So depends on what your home course is, what type of golf you're used to, but equipment does matter. I always say in disc golf, the arrow matters a lot more than people say. It's the archer, not the arrow. But in disc golf, if your arrows suck, you're going to have a tough time.
That's what I've said this multiple times. If you're a somewhat athletic human being, you should be able to throw over 300 feet.
Yep.
And the reason you aren't throwing over 300 feet, obviously, yes, there might be some form things here and there. It's honestly probably because you're throwing the wrong disc. Like, you should be able to find a disc that you can throw on hyzer that flips up, that rides to the right, and then comes out. You're probably throwing something way too overstable. So that's a great point. I remember when we had Worlds at Utah, that was I was like, every disc in my bag sucks. I was like, no, these are all so over. Like, you had to throw such flippy discs out there. It was crazy. So yeah, good luck out there though. That was James. Good luck to James out there. This is from Ben. I had an idea for holes on golf courses or open holes in general. Have an OB line and a rough line. So now you have an OB line, a rough line, and a fairway. If your disc lands in between the OB line and the rough line, you're in the rough, and your next shot has to be a standstill. If you land in the fairway, you can take a run up. I think this would reward players who are more accurate off the tee and can cause there to be more score separation, with some players having to throw standstill while others can do their normal run up. I'm curious what your all's thoughts are on this.
You want to go first?
We've kind of talked about it. Like, I think this is a cool thing to try.
Experiment, yeah.
Let's just try it at a tournament and see what happens. Maybe like at an exhibition, maybe at a all-star event. Like, let's just try it and see how it plays out.
I agree. I love experimental thinking. I love trying to think outside of the box and not think we have to match golf in that regard. Policing shots I'm thinking Disc Golf Pro Tour, I think is bizarre. I think it's a little goofy. I remember Juliana Korver told a story of when she went over to Taiwan or something like that, and they were like forced forehand roller holes or something. And
that's weird.
Yeah, but as a non-sanctioned event, try it. See if it's cool. I also just I don't think standstills are that cool. I think they're impressive if pulled off really well, but I don't want to watch someone get forced to throw a standstill if they're in the middle of the fairway. If the rough is thick, go ahead, take a run up. That's hard. That's really not easy to do. So, but I'm all for trying. Like, if you want a smaller basket, have a bullseye tournament. Have whatever the
marksman.
Yeah, the marksman baskets. Go ahead, do a marksman tournament. See how that goes. When the wind picks up to 15, I think you'll change your opinion pretty quick. But I think that kind of stuff is cool, and I want more TDs to think about that. But again, it's got to be worth it for them too.
Yeah, I had two thoughts on that could, again, this goes to the fact of disc golf doesn't have money yet to really make these changes. The two things would be taller grass, right? Tall, thick grass, like trying to do a run up in tall, thick grass, super tough. And I'm talking like knee high, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's going to cause timing issues. The other thing that I would like to see is like sand. You can utilize sand, soft sand. That would be tough.
Not for OB.
Yes.
Like just for playing surface. Yes.
Correct.
It doesn't need to be a bunker.
Correct. And then the second thing that I think would be really interesting is if they start building like lips out. So similar to how bunkers are in golf, where you go down and you have a lip that you have to deal with. Imagine if the fairway, you just had a clear shot, but then if you get off the fairway, you have almost like this lip. So now you're having to throw like up, and you're not going to be able to throw 500 feet if you have to go up, where the person in the fairway, they could just throw a laser 500, you know? So having these things of where, or maybe if you go off to the right, now you have a super low ceiling. And if you're in the middle of the fairway, you don't have to have a slow, like, I think there's different ways of doing it. Then I agree. The standstill, I'm still down to try it. I think it could just look really weird.
Yeah, I love the idea.
Really, and also, Corey Ellis might win every tournament.
Might win every single tournament. Correct.
Yeah. All right, this is coming from Tony. If 50 people showed up to Dubs League, how many top teams should win money? This is a good question.
Ooh. I feel like it's usually like top 3 that win money. If it's a non-handicap league, because I've played some leagues that I thought were regular leagues that were handicap leagues, and that's like a totally different story. But I don't know, you paying what, $7, ace pot included, CTP included, $5 from 50 players, 250. Yeah, top 3.
Top 3. Yeah,
for 50. Yeah.
I've only done one Dubs thing before. I think it was pretty fun though. Probably should do more.
I think it's. I have learned so much disc golf from playing Dubs, and I don't know, like otherwise, like you're paying $7, and then if payout is watered down to 10 people or 10 teams, like you're not going to get paid anything. So yeah, it's got to be top 3.
I like it. Kyle wants to know, would there ever be a chance that we could see a commentators cup? The commentators from Disc Golf Network, Jomez, playing either singles or doubles with common lead card players like Calvin and Gannon, among others, doing the commentary. So a little switcheroo.
Okay. Do these players, what if it's like a Conroe Riley or a Sarah Hokum, or like players that still compete but they do some commentary? Like what side does Luke Humphreys play on? Like what side does, because Kevin Jones has done commentary.
So they're saying you are doing, you're playing, and the people that normally are playing are the commentators.
Yeah. So like,
you're saying should Luke? Well, Luke would be a commentator in that situation, I guess, right?
Okay, so we take anyone who has done disc golf commentary, like Nathan Queen goes there too. Andrew Fish goes on that side. We have to determine who the commentators are.
I think you have to not be still playing. Okay. So I don't think like Nate Sexton could
tour card.
I don't think you can, if you're playing right now on tour, I don't think you could. So like Nate Doss is coming out of the booth. Terry Miller's coming. Like those guys are all playing.
Philo and those guys.
Philo's playing. Yeah. That could be a fun little thing.
I'm down because I can still game. I actually feel like I'm better at certain things in disc golf than I was when I was touring. I've lost a little bit of distance, but I feel like I could still hang. I actually might try Monday qualifying at USDGC this year.
I love that.
It's a good lefty course. You know, it's a good course. I know it really well. I've played it a bunch of times, and now I live a half hour from there. So I actually get to go home before Worlds. So I might pull off a couple of practice rounds. We'll see.
I like it. And if there's a way for me to be able to actually see Doss play, that would be phenomenal. When they did that like Legends of the Game skins thing at USDGC last year, and I got to watch Climo play, Schultz play, Will Schustrick, all these guys play that I've never seen play before. It was awesome. I've never seen Nate Doss play in person. I've only seen video.
He was my all-time favorite growing up. I got to watch him at 2010 Worlds at Lemon Lake, and he just blew my brain out of my skull. There was a hole that was like a 370-foot wooded turnover, and he threw like a late flip buzz, like right when the TI Buzz came out. And I thought to myself, like, I'm never going to be able to do that. Like, he's the best putter thrower that I have ever seen in my entire life. Over Conrad, over any of these guys that are amazing putter throwers, Doss, like, he always jokes that he was never the best putter, but he was great at putting his putter under the basket. And that's why he won. Yeah, he's a stud.
Yeah, it was crazy to watch Ken play in person too, because you always hear like, oh, well, like he wasn't really playing against anyone. Like his field was really terrible. And that's also kind of been my argument with like,
it's true, but
if we're looking at Paul Macbeth and we're looking at Ricky, right? Like the era that those guys were playing in when they were winning all the time, like tour is way different now. Like there's so many more people you have to play. So I've seen that with Paul. I've seen that with Ken. But then I got to watch Ken in person play.
Nasty.
He was just like birding every hole at USDGC. Then I got to see Will Schustrick on it was hole 1, 2, 3. So the one that you're kind of up on the road and you're blasting out. It was farther than anyone that I played all tournament with, like by 50 feet.
And his throw is not even close to the same as it was when he peaked. He threw the single most impressive disc golf shot that I've ever seen. It was in 2011 at WR Jackson. It's the double fairway par 5.
Yep.
And that left gap on the second fairway was so much tighter, had so many more trees. He threw a rock 450 down the pipe left side and eagled it. And it was the coolest shot that I've ever seen. And he actually last year walked me up to that spot and like made me remember that I wasn't crazy. He showed me exactly where the shot was thrown from. And I was like, I've not seen anybody else do that. With a KC Rock, just craziness. Yeah, some of these guys like are so much better than their era like gives them credit for.
I think
like,
you pick these guys up and you pick them up and you drop them, and I think they compete.
I think Doss could still compete if he had some time to get going. I think he could still compete because he has that tenacity, that little X factor that other athletes maybe that are good throwers just don't have. Also, Wilt Chamberlain was probably really good at basketball.
Yes.
Come on. He has to have been good at basketball.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. All right. Final question for us tonight comes from Joe. Are injuries becoming more prevalent, or are we just hearing about them more now? This is a good one for you to answer because I've only been in the game for a little bit, so I don't really know.
I'm seeing more injuries, but we don't know how severe the injuries are. But also, like, you were talking about DNFs, and there was a time when on Statmando, I led the tour in DNFs. I had like 3 in 2021. Every single one of those times, I was injured and didn't want to finish the tournament because I was in so much pain. And then you hear online all these people calling me soft, like, oh, he's just trying to protect his blah, blah, blah. It's like, what am I protecting? I want to play disc golf really bad. Like, there's no ego to protect because at the end of the day, like you say, ratings are fun. It's like astrology. Like, I don't actually believe in the crap, but it's fun to talk about, you know, like, so, but I know firsthand that it just sucks. And when you're 2 rounds into a tournament and it hurts really bad to throw and you know you're not going to cash, like, you might not continue on the tournament. And I've met a lot of players that are just in a terrible spot with overuse injuries. And it's probably because it's not like they're growing up as teens training their bodies for professional disc golf. Like, they're playing disc golf. So I think it's just something that over time the athletes are going to realize. And I think a lot of the guys now that are dealing with this are going to serve as examples for the future of like, we don't want this to happen. I don't want to tear my labrum. I don't want to have to get shoulder surgery. Like, you know, and then, I don't know. I think we're seeing more than we've ever seen, but I think eventually the newer generations are going to come up dreaming of being professional disc golfers from a lot younger age. And I think we're going to see a change in that. And we're going to see better sports science on disc golf at some point anyway. It's getting too big for people to not focus a lot of their time on. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I thought when I came in at 2020, I thought it was crazy how people would just drive 6 hours from one tournament to the next, get out of their van, walk to the tee, and just start throwing. And it's like, I get it. You're 20 years old, you're 22, you're 23. Like, you can do that. Like, I remember in college, like, I could roll out of bed in college and play ultimate frisbee.
Exactly.
But I learned really quickly that wasn't the smartest thing. I could do it, but it wasn't the smartest thing. And so we started implementing warming up. We started implementing dynamic stretches. And then when we were done, we started implementing cool downs. We started implementing ice baths. We started implementing all these things, right? To try to prohibit as best as we possibly can injuries. You can't be perfect, but you try to do your best. And there has been a massive difference in the number of people that warm up before tournaments in 2020. And now in 2024, so many guys are now warming up that used to never do anything. So it is a slow process, I think.
It's a long season. And yeah, sports evolve over time. And this is just one of those evolutions in the sport. Like, we're not going to have a 16-speed driver, but we're going to have the players learning how to throw those 12 speeds week in and week out without getting injured. So I think it's a really cool evolution, and I think it's inevitable. But there's a lot of guys that just grew up playing disc golf as a kid, never dreaming that there would be cameras on them.
Yep.
So I get it. I totally understand it. Disc golf was freedom for a lot of these players, even now. Like, this is them riding their bike to the course to go play, and they never thought about this as like basketball or football. It's Frisbee at the end of the day, and the courses were shorter. And now we're playing 10, 11, 12,000 foot courses sometimes, and the game's changed. So it's exciting because I see the young generations of players caring about that a lot more, because one young injury can take you out of potentially millions of dollars. Who knows who's going to get the next $1 million contract when some of these big ones are up? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Ultimate Frisbee. I was spending $5,000 to like $10,000 to play Ultimate Frisbee, right? Like, I was losing money every year to do the thing that I love doing. And so the idea of like, wait, I can play Ultimate Frisbee and like make a living off of it, like that never popped into my head. And so I think like where disc golf was at one point was, wait, I can just make a living, like pay my gas bills, pay my phone bill, eat, and just play disc golf. Like, the fact that was an option to a lot of people, like, that's awesome. But now it's like, wait, I can like buy a house. Like, wait, I can put my kids in, like, hold on a sec. So that is a huge change for a lot of people. And I think, like you said, I think we're going to start seeing a change.
It has to.
It's one thing to be like, oh yeah, I'm just like, living bed to bed, jumping around, having fun time. And it's another thing, like a kid being like, no, I've been thinking about being a professional disc golfer since I was 10.
You don't see this younger generation of pro player doing YouTube commentary on the side anymore. You don't see them like, it's a little YouTube to promote themselves, but they're like, I'm a player and I'm trying to get that Paul Macbeth money when his contract's up. I'm trying to, take that salary cap, because it's inevitable. Ricky, Paul, Simon, these guys are going to run their deals out. Where's all that money going to go? And hopefully, in their eyes, it's going to go to them. So they better work hard and they better be durable, because a company now is looking more at ROI than they ever have. We're seeing that in contracts with not top tier players. It's harder to get one of those good deals. So I think that they're smart. I think they're on the right track, and I'm excited to see where all these like 20 to 26-year-old players go in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, Pee-wee just said that Jake Wolf has talked about warming up for 3 hours before a round.
Well, he's psycho. That guy, I mean, not in a good way. Like, he is... That's what you have to do to play the style that he plays. Like, I'm sorry, it's the only way.
He's a pitcher.
The only way.
He's literally a pitcher. That's literally what he is. There was also Edwin Stat said, we need a legit master tour at some point. Brian, Philo, Doss, Climo, Schultz, Felberg, Shoestring, Stokely, Rico, Oates, Brinster, McCrae.
I don't know. I mean, they'll do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I would do more overall competitions like freestyle and distance and stuff like that. I'll let those guys do the golf. I love commentating golf, but my shoulder, my back, my knee, it never gets better. And doing a full tour would never be good for me. I'll commentate it though. If someone does a legit Masters tour, give me a call. I would love to watch some short technical courses get shredded by these guys that have been throwing the same mid-range for 20 years. Give me that all day.
Frank, also another Tour Life crew member. He makes a good point. He says, I would love to see money go from sponsorships to payouts. In my opinion, that will grow the sport faster. I kind of agree. I think right now, almost everyone on tour makes more money off tour than they actually do winnings in tournaments, right? And I think that needs to actually switch. I think obviously there are some people like myself would be a good candidate of someone that would probably make more money off tour than I make actually in tour victories, but I should be like in minority. I think the majority of people should be making a way more money from their winnings on tour than in their sponsorships, or at least like, I get it. Like if you're, Eagle McMahon and you've got 15 sponsorships, then maybe in those 15, you make more money. But like your one disc manufacturer sponsorship, you shouldn't be making more money than what you are. And I think that would actually push more players to come out and tour.
What is it in golf? What is it like in traditional golf?
There's literally just a handful of guys that make more in their,
With the endorsements?
Yeah. If we're looking just like at clubs, right? Like their club sponsorships, like a lot of guys are getting $100,000 to $300,000. Like those are kind of like the mid-tier guys.
Okay.
And you go out and you win a tournament, you're taking home 1.4 million in one tournament. You get last cash at a tournament, you're taking home $40,000, right? So the scale is vastly different.
Be wild. It's also deeply rooted in American culture and global culture, but Frisbee could get there. I'm hoping for a paradigm shift. I'd love to see the world take it more seriously, or maybe if we all just took it as seriously as Finland does. I would love to see where that takes ultimate disc golf, freestyle, all of the above. But
did you see Kristen got a news interview when she stepped off her plane?
Oh, what? I didn't see that.
You didn't see that?
Of course, though. She's a hero. She's
like in the airport getting a news interview. Crazy.
I cannot wait to see what Estonia does this year to up the game in disc golf. I think there are a few tournaments here, a few courses in the States that up the game for everybody else. Estonia, I feel like, is brewing something big. And I feel like Kristen is the one that's showing them like, hey, it's a big deal and we're going to make it a big deal. And I just can't wait. Something big's going to happen and it's going to be in Estonia.
I had a hot take a couple weeks ago where I said, I actually think disc golf's a switch where right now we go over to Europe to play a couple events. I think it should switch. I think we should play all of our events in Europe and come over to the States and play a couple events.
Okay. That sounds fine.
That was my hot take. Like if we're able to get way more people interested and it's way more popular to the point of where like we're not getting any disc golf pro tour stuff in like billboards or on bus sign. We're not doing any of that over here. Like it's way less competition over there. Like there's way less sports going on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Marco says her country has 50,000 people. That's not true, Marcos. Estonia, can you fact check that, Silas? Does Estonia
maybe
have
500,000?
There's no chance. Estonia has 50,000 people.
No,
There's
it's
no
probably
shot.
5 million. It's probably 5 million.
I'm hoping he was being sarcastic there.
1.349 million.
Okay, so not even close.
It's not that many people, but it is way more than 50,000. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see kind of how that shifts, right? Because there's certain things over there, like skiing over in Europe is massive.
Definitely.
Over here, no one really cares about it. Unless you're a potential Olympic gold medalist and we care about it for 1 week out of every 4 years.
Or super rich. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. All right. I don't really know. Is anything going down this week in Foundation Disc Golf, Silas? I didn't really have too much. Do you know anything popping off this week?
Not too much going on. A lot of plans for future things. So
yes. Dark Horse, Discraft, and Foundation. Something's in the works there. It wasn't possible a while ago. We're making it happen, so stay tuned for that. That will be very exciting. For those that jumped in Edwin's earlier trivia today, for those that don't know, jump in 15 minutes or so before we go live here. So like right around like 7:45 Eastern time. Edwin Stats is in the chat, and he gives away a disc every time to the first person that answers his trivia question. So don't miss out on that next week. Thanks to all of our new Tour Life crew members. We appreciate all of you guys. And what's our Tour Life merch update here, Silas? Were we trying to cross 500? What were we trying to cross?
So we were at 347 last week.
We were trying to cross 400, I think.
Yeah. We are at 362.
Ooh, okay. So getting closer to 400, go over to foundationdisc.com, pick up some Tour Life merch over there. You can also, I'm wearing some this is grip locked merch. This is a Connor horse.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can pick that up as well if you want. But Brian, do you have anything right now other than social media? Anything that people, if they want to support you?
Yeah. So Brian _Earhart on Instagram. Also, I have 2 shows happening on Jomez. I want you guys to watch if you haven't yet. I have a show called Catch, which is just a very lighthearted interview show where we toss a frisbee, mic up, talk about life. At some point, we're getting you on the show for sure, Brodie. We'll talk about Ultimate and whatnot, but check that out. We did an experimental season to kind of figure out where the direction of the show is going to go, and I think it turned out pretty good, all things considered. And then the putting game for Jomez is coming back. We have filmed 4 already. We just rented out the entire City Museum in St. Louis, Missouri, and filmed an awesome one there. So we're going to do that this year, drop that on the off season. And then bearheart.shop, there's some shirts, some hats, and then Ledgestone is still handling some Bearheart discs for me this season. So there you go. And thank you guys so much. Thanks, Brodie. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thumber Life also wants to say that Brian is a world-class guitar player.
No, I'm not. I'm a noodler that loves to pick around on the same few chords, but I'm pretty good at picking. That's it. But I'm not playing in a band.
What's the best song you can do on the guitar?
I like some stuff from Tallest Man on Earth, who's like a folk player from Sweden, I believe, and he has a couple songs that I like to play, but nothing too insane. Nothing too insane. Okay. I can play a song on the banjo by Bela Fleck. I can play Big Country if any of you like banjo music, but I'm a little rusty. But other than that, there you go.
I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube. It's this drum YouTube channel where they have like professional drummers from bands come in and they have them listen to the music without the drums. And then they have to,
that's cool.
They have to do the drums the way that they think they were.
Intuition.
I watched like an hour and a half of it. It was incredible. There was like a 16-year-old girl. Like some of these musician people that come in, like my sister was one of them. She could we had like a little Casio piano for Christmas once, and she just like popped on and like was able to make stuff that actually sounded good, which is just like, I don't know. I definitely do not have, what I can't do, Brian, I can't do this. I can't do the tap, 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 tap. Like I can't.
You're not a metronome boy.
I can't keep this going and then do something weird over here. I can't do it.
You know.
Can't do it.
I believe in you. If you obsess over it as much as you obsess over disc golf and Ultimate, I bet you could, because you're a hyper fixator and you're an obsessive person. I'm not naturally
gifted at that.
Oh no. It's hard.
Some people can do that.
Like it's hard out here sometimes.
Like this.
Oh, that's good.
I kind of can get that.
Yeah.
I this way I don't have. That way I don't have. So
wow.
Yeah. That's just not a gift I have. Also surfing. Also something that I'm very bad at. And I can't
I've never tried.
Can't float either.
Neither can I. I'm a rock.
Just straight to the ground. Dead.
Yep.
All right. This was fun, man. This was fun. We'll have to have you come back with Yuli at some point too.
Sure.
Chop it up again, but this was good times. I know everyone I've seen like all the kind words on social media towards you. I think what you're doing right now was one element that I said like a couple years ago, like we were drastically needing. We need someone on the ground that knows what they're doing and talking about. I think you've been doing a great job. Nate Perkins. I know Zach Melton jumped in there.
Yeah.
I think everyone really appreciates all the stuff that you are doing for the Disc Golf Pro Tour and really helping the professional side of disc golf go. So
thank you, man. We're getting there.
Keep it going, man. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Stuff. Good stuff. All right, folks, that's going to be it for Tour Life. Thank you guys, everyone, for watching. We appreciate you, and we'll see you guys next week.